What's up, Fantasy Champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network. Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake SIlva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again as we are live on a Monday night. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show wherever and however you may be watching. We are live on all platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and, of course, Twitch, as well on all social media platforms. Like, follow, and subscribe, and hit the bell button for all latest notifications on everything, on all things the Snake Sports Talk Show here on the Spotlight Sports Network. I am jam-packed. I'm jam-packed all for tonight and even for tomorrow. First of all, it's a lot of fun, and I hope every single one of you guys enjoyed it on the draft just this past weekend and then just on Thursday and Friday. What a lot of fun it was, right? It was an awful lot of fun. I have a lot to break down just from this draft. What's going on, John L. Jackson? What's going on? I appreciate every one of you guys jumping in and coming on aboard. But I do have a lot of really good guests up on here as they share their thoughts on their teams and, of course, their draft grade, not to mention even the overall offseason. So I have a lot to talk about. Even best for last, I'm giving all of my grades first off in the AFC West from the offseason to the draft, all of my thoughts on how every single one of these teams have done throughout this year as we get ready for the 2021 season. So first off, let's just shift to this because I want to talk at least a little bit more up on this draft because first and foremost, congratulations to every single one of the draftees that ended up getting drafted into the NFL. It's a lot of hard work. It's hard work paid off. And I'm really glad that every single one of them got a chance to get up onto a team. Even for the undrafted free agents, they still managed to get signed. But there's a lot of takeaways. There were a lot of takeaways up on the draft. And I will say this. Because first and foremost, and I'm also going to have my special guest, Malcolm Bean, a.k.a. Malguli from the Ghoulie Zone, coming in here in just a moment, but talking a lot about these quarterbacks. So, of course, Trevor Lawrence was the obvious home run and slam dunk for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We all knew that. Urban Meyer comes into a new system, was a former Florida Gators coach, so he comes back into Florida and is reunited. And then you have Trevor Lawrence, who is one of the high-end, top-talented quarterbacks in this draft, not to mention even for some coming out of college. You know, and this is picture perfect. This was a match made in heaven from both sides. You knew this was going to be an obvious draft pick, and a lot of people, they wanted to overhype it and everything else, but it was obvious. Zach Wilson gets drafted by the New York Jets. My concern with this is, because the AFC East, if you haven't seen already, is loaded with defenders. It's loaded with them. I mean, defenses from Miami, New England, Buffalo. He's going to have his hands full when he comes into a new system with a new head coach in Robert Saleh. But also, they did have a steal of the draft as well with getting Elijah Vera Tucker. And it's one that really improves their offensive line. That was the first thing that they ended up doing, was getting Mekhi Becton last year. But things did not work out with Adam Gase and the rest of the offensive system. We all knew that. But now Zach Wilson comes in. Darnold's now officially a Panther. In comes Robert Saleh. And now you have a brand new system. Hopefully with a new revamped offensive line, this team's only going to get better as the years go on. But you are going to have your hands full with defenses majority of the time. And that's one that I believe could be a concern for Zach Wilson and even for Robert Saleh moving forward. But I will say this. The one thing that really caught my attention, and I thought this was beautiful, there were 2 quarterbacks that got taken. First off, Trey Lance. Trey Lance to San Francisco. Lots and lots of people have had their draft analysis on Trey Lance. He sat out this past year, but he had a phenomenal 2019 season with North Dakota State. And what's interesting about this, you could not have put Trey Lance in a better system. You couldn't. Kyle Shanahan, offensive-minded genius. The offensive line is going to get healthier, and it's getting better. And they've also extended contracts with a bunch of players. Plus, you got offensive wide receivers, weapons all around. Raheem Mostert. You also have you've got Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle. This is a match made in heaven. And not to mention the defense. Now, I know it's going to be a little bit different without Robert Saleh in the building. But I feel like Trey Lance, and he's not going to come in as a starting quarterback right off the bat. It's still going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, one way or another, whether you like it or you don't. Jimmy G is still going to be the starting quarterback for now. And this is perfect because at least it gives Kyle Shanahan enough time to evaluate Trey Lance, find some of the strengths and weaknesses that he has in his game. One, he can be mobile out of the pocket. He's got a strong arm. There are a lot of positives that you can hear about certain quarterbacks from North Dakota State, Trey Lance being one of them. Carson Wentz was one of them in 2016 when he was taken 2nd overall. Something to me about Trey Lance just feels right. I know I spoke a lot about, potentially Justin Fields going to San Francisco because either one of them could work. It's all amongst a system you have in place. If the system works right, then it's going to be successful, whether or not, the player is going to have a successful career in this building. So I feel like Trey Lance is coming into a great situation. He's going to have a lot of fun with this offense and defense. He's going to have a lot of fun learning from Kyle Shanahan. And it makes me feel like San Francisco could be on the positives and on the running, especially in the division that they're in the NFC West. You have Seattle and Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, and now you have Matthew Stafford with the LA Rams and Sean McVay. This is what's going to be a Wild West in the NFC that I think is going to be fun to watch for years to come. But if you're talking about smart, innovative coaches like a McVay or Shanahan, then at the very least that they could do was at least roll the dice and hope that the numbers were their way. And it did. The fact that they settled for Trey Lance, because a lot of this leak about Mac Jones is the smarter and the safer pick, please. My only thing is, to a certain extent, could Mac Jones really be successful in San Francisco? Knowing that you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's all about pocket presence, you're going to bring in another young kid who has just about the same thing? Or are you going to end up innovating and going for somebody who could be mobile out of the pocket, still have a strong arm, and is smart enough that he can execute the plays? That's where I felt like John Lynch was smart about this. And so was Kyle Shanahan. This was probably the smartest and yet safest pick that San Francisco could build upon because it keeps their future intact, and then they could start to work around the rest of the pieces. That's the only thing that I could say about with San Francisco. Now, 2, Justin Fields. A lot of people were like, well, yeah, Chicago. I mean, they never really had, a big-time quarterback. We all knew that. The only 2 successful quarterbacks in this organization was Jim McMahon and Jay Cutler. That's it. Cade McNown, please. Jim Harbaugh only used him for a couple of years and then ran it down. Eventually, Kyle Orton, and they ran a lot of quarterbacks. And then they tried to convince us about Mitch Trubisky. Is it one of the things that Brian Pace realized and knew what he needed to do right? You just needed to get a quarterback who's willing to be different, who's willing to move out of the pocket, who's willing to throw deep downfield. You have a talented wide receiver in Allen Robinson and a bunch of other really good receivers. You also have a run game with David Montgomery, and you also have a specialist in Terry Cohen. And you got one of the strongest tight ends in Cole Kmet. Now, this offensive line is going to get better as time goes. But eventually, this is something that Chicago, this was the perfect fit for Justin Fields. Something to me feels like Chicago. Justin Fields is tough, strong arm, great presence, but he's also a really good kid with a good head on his shoulders. That's why when it comes to Chicago Bears fans, it was exciting. And it was exciting stuff because finally, after all these years, because they've always been known for their defenses. They always have. That persona has never changed. They love their defenses. Monsters of the Midwest or Monsters of the Midway. I mean, that's what they were always known for. But the only position they've always butchered was quarterback. Ryan Pace and the McCaskey family told you this is a time of change. We are not going through the same road again. We're going to get our quarterback when available, because a lot of speculation was looking at either Denver and John Elway and the rest of them were going to take another quarterback. And here we are again in the quarterback project process, but not this time. Chicago was lucky to land a deal with Dallas, and they got aggressive and they succeeded. They get Justin Fields, who I think is going to be very successful, knowing you're in a division in the NFC North with Minnesota and Kirk Cousins, which who knows how long that relationship will last. You have Detroit. They just got Jared Goff. They get one of the best offensive linemen, but who knows what his weapons are going to be. That's going to be a tough position for Jared Goff to be in. And then I don't know what's happening in Green Bay, but that'll be the next thing that's going to be talked about here in just a moment. But something to me feels like Chicago took a big bite out of that deep dish pizza, because that's what needed to happen. They needed to get themselves a playmaker and a difference maker on this offense. They have enough of those talents. You guys ever seen exactly how much of their weapons they've gone through? Maybe Musa Mohammed, Bernard Berrien, Desmond Clark, Zach Miller, Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, Allen Robinson, Johnny Knox. I could go at this for days. They had all of these offensive weaponry, but did not have the right play caller at quarterback. Not even for Jay Cutler, not even for Caleb Haney, not even for Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles or Mike Glennon or any of them. So this was a time of change. And a lot of people who think otherwise about Justin Fields, this was the best pick the Chicago Bears have made, probably in ever. But I think this is a positive upside for Chicago Bears fans and for the organization themselves. And that's what's going to lead me to my next segment from here. Because, oh boy, apparently one team, and I seem to have it here, one team seems to really be up in jeopardy, don't they? Aren't they just down in jeopardy? Because what is going on with Aaron Rodgers up to this point? He is mad. He is pissed. He's upset. He's cranky and all. We all knew this with Aaron Rodgers for the last couple of seasons. How many times does Aaron Rodgers have to continuously do Green Bay favors until it really bites them? And now you're not really giving him any kind of support. And ultimately, and this is where the story came out, because Aaron Rodgers, the last couple of seasons, they have not addressed wide receivers since Devontae Adams. They have not. They have not addressed any of the offensive weaponry and wide receivers. They've always kind of came up and got wide receivers from the 4th, if not the 5th round, maybe even the 3rd. But they never got a 1st round or a 2nd round talent, which are usually always the steals of the draft. And that was one thing that really ticked off Aaron Rodgers. But here's the other part. Because, of course, the general manager of the Green Bay Packers went rogue last year and decided that, we're going to move up into the draft and get Jordan Love. Really? Apparently, there seems to be love in the air in Green Bay. But even with that, here's the one thing you have to realize with Green Bay. They're a small town organization. Small town. But it always gets packed up in Lambeau Field, doesn't it? They love their Packers. They love their football. That's always been tradition. But at the same time, we've seen this with Brett Favre at the time when Brett was 35. They drafted a NorCal kid named Aaron Rodgers. Aaron turns 36. And they drafted Jordan Love in the 1st round, the 23rd pick. Something tells you about Green Bay and how they really mistreat and how they've really dealt with Aaron Rodgers. They don't deserve him. They have never deserved him since the day he got drafted. And one thing I will say about this, because Green Bay, notice about this, they've lost a lot of talented players. They've lost Corey Linsley to the Chargers, one of their top talented centers. They've lost Blake Martinez, who was a ball hogger on defense. Now he's playing successfully under the defensive schematics from Joe Judge in New York with the Giants. Now they've lost Christian Kirksey, and the first thing they had to address in the 1st round was a corner? Not even a wide receiver? Not even an offensive tackle, which they did later on, but that's after you then go and make this decision on getting different position players. I don't understand this. And part of those reasons why Aaron Rodgers is so ticked is because of the fact of what this general manager and the organization has done for Aaron in the last couple of years. And listen, Aaron Rodgers is going to go down maybe one of the top 10, if not top 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Winning a Super Bowl, Golden Arm, MVP, all of this. I mean, he's going to go down in it eventually. But when you look at Green Bay and in the last few drafts and in the last few off seasons, don't you really think that Aaron probably deserves better? This is one of those things. And here's what I'm also being told. Because they're not confident or they're not trustworthy on Jordan Love starting for the Green Bay Packers. They believe he's not ready. So if that's the case, then why not have drafted a wide receiver early on? Help Aaron Rodgers out. Because this is my belief. If you believe that Jordan Love is ready to play, he's ready to hit the field, you would have been making a deal hours ago for Aaron Rodgers. Get an overhaul of draft picks. Get at least a couple of real good mid-grade players that you could play either offensively or defensively, and then work things out in the end of it. That's what you could do. But in this case, now you're kind of sitting on a tightrope, feeling like, well, Jordan Love's not ready to play. And, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? Russell Wilson complained about an offensive line. He's finally got one. Now there's no excuses. Russ has to produce. Plus, you think about offensive weaponry. couple of teams finally have some. There's no excuses. Look at what's happening in Cleveland. Cleveland is a stacked team. There is no excuses for Baker Mayfield. You have plenty of time in the pocket with that stacked offensive line. You have so many weapons around you, from Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Nick Chubb, the list goes on, and you have a really good defense. There's no excuses. But why wouldn't Green Bay be on the same page? Is it because there's not enough money in the bank when it comes to their cap space? Or is it because maybe this is just a foiled year of draft picks? Whatever the case may be, Aaron Rodgers deserves at least a little bit more credit, a little better. Tom Brady moved out of New England because he could not get the weapons he wanted in New England. Now he's got them all in Tampa. So you figure it out, Green Bay fans. And you figure it out as well, Green Bay, because by the time starts to run out, you're not going to have much of Aaron Rodgers left. So you better hope that Jordan Love is ready to play. Otherwise, it's just going to be bad news, and it's just going to be downhill for one of the oldest franchises in the NFL and for a small town city in Green Bay. It's just going to be very disappointing. All right, coming up next. So the NHL playoffs is close to being upon us. There are a bunch of different takeaways from here. And I think there are a few steals that I can look at as we get closer and closer to the NHL picture. But I feel like I kind of have a sense of some of the teams that are coming in that are red hot, and I'm going to explain that coming up next. Plus, I also do have Malguli in the Goalie Zone that's going to be joining me here in a little bit to discussing the Chicago Bears and the draft, and not to mention the entire offseason and what my grade will be from his side of things. That's all coming up next. So for all of you fantasy sport gurus, coast to coast, nationwide, wherever you may be, you guys love playing fantasy sports, and you guys also love winning cold, hard cash. Well, there is an app out there for you. You could download it on the App Store or on Google Play. It's called Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy has hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities where you could play, have fun, and also win cold, hard cash. There's everything going on. Major League Baseball, it's big on it. And also, you got NHL, you got NBA, you got everything happening right there at a click of a button. And also, for all of our video game nerds out there, myself included, you got esports that we also bet on. So go to thrivefantasy.com, and when you sign up and put in your first $20 deposit today, use promo code SS Network. That's short for Spotlight Sports Network. Thrive Fantasy promises on the promo code that they will match it up to $50 of your first play. That's a heck of a deal, ain't it? So what are you waiting for? Download it today on the App Store and Google Play and start having some fun and win some cold, hard cash today. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network, thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
Be famous? Do you really want to be a superstar? Do you really want to get dangerous? Do you even know where the groupies are?
Welcome to Hammer's house. Welcome to the My City, My Game pod show featuring Raider J77, your place for all things Raiders and all things Trailblazers. Brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now let's go.
So, of course, folks, there are big things happening soon, and I will have at least some news up over here for you guys a little later on. But if you guys haven't done so already, for all of our faithful Spotlight Sports Network fans up out there and all of our loyal subscribers, if you haven't done so already and you guys want to rep the network, rep your favorite shows, and show your love today, go online to the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com and enter through the merch section that'll take you through, powered by Spreadshirt. We have t-shirts, hoodies, so much more to choose from to get you to rep your gear during the summertime and also show out and shout out all of your love to all of the shows here up on the network, all of our great colleagues here who work day in and day out. So go online to SpotlightSportsNetwork.com on the merch section, powered by Spreadshirt. Wow. You know what? It was a lot to really cover up on the draft. And I was very excited, for one, not only just to being, a personal fan myself, but I think a lot of teams did very impressive. There were only maybe a couple that were kind of head scratchers to me. And I think it's interesting to me. It's really interesting. All of the needs, all of the picks, a lot of these high-end talents. And I'm very excited to see all of these kids finally hit the field, finally hit practice for the first time. And I think this is going to be one of those ones that, I told my colleagues and I told everybody all in front of me is I just think this is the last official extravagant draft that we have in a while, because this was big. This was huge. And I really enjoyed it. I hope all of you guys did too. And of course, my good friend who's also going to be joining me here, from the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard. Of course, my good friend who covers on all Chicago sports. That's the Bulls, that's the Bears, that's the Blackhawks, that's also the Chicago Cubs, and of course also covers a lot of content as well. Wrestling content from NXT, AEW, WWE, a lot of it. And you gotta love it when he's in the zone. That's Malcolm Bean, aka Malguli, in the Ghoulie zone. So Ghoulie, I have to really get your thoughts upon this, because I watched your reaction during the draft, and it was a lot of fun. But to see Chicago finally take the risk, get rewarded, get Justin Fields, does this feel like that Ryan Pace and the McCaskies are finally starting to realize things? What has been happening in this franchise for the last few years?
The funny thing is, I can't even put the McCaskies on here because I believe this was more, or Ryan Pace for that matter, because this was more of a Matt and Nagy type of pick, and Matt Nagy wanted somebody to literally fall onto that system, because Ryan Pace thought Mitchell Trubisky was going to be it, and as we all know, the turmoil that caused that to happen, that wasn't it. And, getting Justin Fields, and I'm going to say this right now, and I looked up on Bear history. The Chicago Bears, in my opinion, they've never drafted a quarterback of color, and I mean like a African-American QB. And it was so big for me, and I was so happy. I'm like, finally, the wheel is starting to change in motion, and I was so proud of the fact of what the Bears did getting Justin Fields, because my reaction was priceless. Even though I will say this, there was only one thing from it I hated. Nothing against Fields, because Fields is going to be the future, and I'll talk about Fields and what the Bears are going to do starting moving forward with this season, this 2021-2022 season. The one thing I hated is that they gave up another first-round pick for that, and they gave it to the Giants, and I was like, and my reaction to that was even like, I'm done, because everybody on the Spotlight Sports Network was saying, Mac Jones, Mac Jones. And I was even saying if they got Mac Jones,
good Lord.
I wasn't gonna trip because it's a Ryan Pacey thing to do, but it seems like um, Justin Fields was their guy. And it amazes me that Justin Fields dropped that far. That was the thing that was shocking because I thought he was going to be a Jet.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was going to be a legit Jet. And nothing against Zach Wilson, but I'm like, he's not the quarterback that I wouldn't say fits the system, but it was out of nowhere. Just him over Justin Fields. And then, and what else happened? There was another one that was, said Trey Lance.
Yeah, Trey Lance to San Francisco, which to me personally, and you knew this too, was I thought Justin Fields would have been a perfect alternative for Kyle Shanahan and for San Francisco moving forward because either one of those two could have had at least the better balanced level of success wherever system that they were going to end up.
Yeah, and the one thing that I will say, and I said this so many times at work, the following people saved their jobs. I think Nagy saved his job, but I don't think Pace still hasn't. I think, and then also with the news conference that they said, they're not going to start Justin Fields, which is good. We probably won't even see Justin Fields probably till around like maybe week, I would say I want to say maybe week 15 or week 16. That if the Bears don't, make the playoffs, which I'm actually assuming here. I don't think they will make the playoffs because after the schedule, even though the schedule hasn't come out yet, but we take on a lot of tough opponents. And personally, I think Chicago could go 8-8 again for the third straight time this season. Yeah, 8-8. Yeah, I'm sick and tired of hearing 8-8. But the thing is, I mean, when you have, the good thing about like today, they got rid of Charles Leno, which was great because Charles Leno is one of the main reasons I held responsible for injuring that had, Nick Foles hurt and had Mitchell Trubisky hurt. And that's what. Oh yeah, I'll get to them in a minute. You might as well bring that helmet back.
I had to get a shout out for my good friend, of course, which I'm very glad that he's up and on here watching me tonight. I mean, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, absolutely. Continue.
Yeah. The thing about it is when you have all of that, and Charles Leno was weak. He was one of the weak link. Him and Bobby Massey were the biggest weak links in our offensive line. And that's why the Bears kept on getting hit, getting eaten alive in that pocket. And like mostly with Mitchell Trubisky and mostly with Nick Foles, especially Nick Foles.
Yeah. And
it literally just hurt Nick Foles right after that.
Yeah.
So I will say this about this situation now is that now that you got Taven Johnson and you got I can't think of the other kid's name. I don't say Moore. I think Monor. Mackey's verse said the Bears suck. Is he a Packers fan?
McKay is actually, he is a Packers fan. And of course, noting to everybody who's live up on here is also the brother-in-law to Bryce Harper.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Since you said the Bears suck, I'm going to have to counter that argument.
Listen, he's got a lot of anxiety of figuring out what is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers in the next couple of days.
Before you talk about somebody else's team, you guys need to worry about Aaron Rodgers because I'm sorry, my buddy, he's leaving. He's leaving. You should have cherished him when y'all won that Super Bowl.
Well, you know what? I will tell you this though too, Goalie, because you mentioned about this with the record of the Chicago Bears. But can I make a thought about this? Ultimately, Andy Dalton is going to start, which is rightfully so. But my thing about this is, and we have seen this with quarterbacks over time. And think about it this way: we saw this with Mitchell Trubisky during his rookie season because I called this too. It was going to come down to a point that Mike Glennon was not going to be starter for very long, especially when you needed somebody to successfully run the play, execute it as best as possible. I feel like this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like at a point, Andy Dalton, depending on the production levels and the protection he has from the line, I feel like this could be something that could be mid-season, about week 8, week 9, and maybe down the stretch. If Matt Nagy sees something that is a tangible in Justin Fields through practice and through, of course, the added reps if he does get first-team reps, maybe we might see Justin Fields be a difference maker possibly in week 8, week 9.
I mean, it is possible, but people are also forgetting they have Nick Foles. But this is one thing that also kind of drew my head in with, and it made me angry. Actually, it made me angry. It's more of a head scratcher. Ryan Pace believes, and Nagy believes. Now, I can understand why they believe this, because you gave not only Justin Fields a great offensive line, but people are also forgetting that you finally give Andy Dalton an offensive line. Let's be real. I don't think Andy Dalton has ever had a great offensive line. I'm not saying that, or had like a line that can protect him like almost 24/7.
Right.
So the thing here is they believe that Andy Dalton can win them 10 games this season. And it was head scratching to me because I'm like, have y'all not seen this goddamn schedule?
Not
Let's
to mention
be real.
the talent's coming out of some of these teams.
Yes, I mean, the NFC North is finally getting its crap together because our boogeyman is finally leaving. It's finally getting, the justice that they deserve. By the way, Green Bay Packers fans, you've had this coming for a long time. I've been telling you all this for years, for 6 years. Give the man offensive line. Give the man wide receivers. Give the man running back. Shower him with everything. But now it's coming back to haunt you. And if Jordan Love is not that guy, I hope and pray that actually, as a Bear fan, I hope and pray that you guys sit in mediocrity like the Bears have been doing for the last 33-something years. And then you can finally know what it's like with how failure tastes. So nothing against Green Bay Packers fans. I don't think you are the scum of the earth like Cowboys fans. Well, nonsensical Cowboys fans, or better yet, it could be worse. You could be bandwagon Patriots fans because the Patriots juggernaut is not dead. I don't care what anybody says; they're not dead.
Yeah,
but back to like with the Bears, 10 wins. I don't see Andy Dalton. I'm not doubting Dalton. I think Dalton has the capability because personally, he's like, people are comparing him to Mike Glennon, which I think is so unfair. He is not Mike Glennon. Andy Dalton is Andy Dalton. People forgot that Andy Dalton had that one good year in Cincinnati, but it was all wasted when they took on the Steelers. I think you remember that game where the defense just decided to to Adam Pac-Man Jones putting his hands on a referee. Dylan not holding on to the ball. And, Marvin Lewis being Marvin Lewis. And also another thing that people fail to realize is that Andy Dalton is being reunited with his offensive coordinator and Bill Lazor.
Yes. So, that's true.
So, Bill Lazor knows how Andy Dalton works. And like I said, I'm not downing 10 games. Now, I'm not doubting Dalton, but 10 games is a stretch. I'd say at least 7.
Yeah, but it makes me feel like it's such a high expectation for a guy who's been around in the league for so long with Cincinnati and, going from Dallas. It makes it feel like there's a high expectation involved, knowing that Chicago, they're just trying to get things right after everything that they've kind of whiffed on and missed at. But I feel, but I totally agree. I feel like that's kind of something that's a little too overhyped. I think it's about 7 games or so.
7 or 8 games.
Sounds about right. Yeah, it sounds about right. And then ultimately, what they may potentially do with Justin Fields moving forward, whether or not he will be ready to take those opportunities to getting on the field.
But this is what will happen if Andy Dalton does, and I mean that's a big, big if he can get us to 10 games and win the NFC North, or just better yet, make it to the playoffs, this is what will happen. Mm-hmm. They will give Dalton a 2-year contract worth $20 million, and I think that's fair. $20 million is fair. Nick Foles, I know a lot of people are going to say, why would you do? I would actually keep Nick Foles. I would literally keep Nick Foles because personally, I think I would love for Justin Fields to learn from Andy Dalton and from Nick Foles. Because Nick Foles, granted, probably, and this is no exaggeration, probably the greatest backup quarterback of all time. And yes, because it is the Super Bowl. And
but
another
of course,
thing is,
too, I mean, Nick Foles also had the relationship with Matt Nagy in Kansas City as a backup for Alex Smith.
As a backup for Alex Smith. And also, a lot of people don't also know this about the Bears' offensive staff. Most of all that offensive staff came from Philadelphia when they won that Super Bowl. Yeah, because they all know how Matt Nagy works. And
all except for Frank Reich.
All except for Frank Reich. And that's the thing. And now with what they done in the draft, they drafted 2 linemen, and they finally, that's the one thing I've always wanted the Bears to address was offensive line. Because for all the years, people can say Jay Cutler, yes, but at the same time, Rex freaking Grossman, Brian Greasy, Brunell, Mark Brunell,
Jim Harbaugh,
Kay
McNown, Caleb Haney,
or better yet, Josh McCown,
Mike Glennon, Josh McCown,
Jeff Garcia. They never give those guys a great offensive line. 2018, Mitchell Trubisky had a ho-hum offensive line. He had a ho-hum offensive line. I thought, okay, the Bears should work on offensive line. They don't do that. They just give him, okay, we just got to focus on the defense. No, that defense is stacked. It was stacked once upon a time, but I mean, it's still stacked. I'd still say it's a Super Bowl caliber defense, but that's the thing. It's like, okay, you're focused on defense, focus on offense. I have never heard of a Bears team that, when's the last time you heard of a Bear quarterback that passed for 4,000 yards?
That's one of the other points.
Closest. Yeah. Jay Cutler is the closest you will ever get to seeing, and that is sad. Personally, people say Jay Cutler. If you say Jay Cutler is the greatest Chicago Bear quarterback, you're right statistically. But personally, the more successful, you have to put Jim Buckus on there, and you have to put the man Jim McMahon on there.
Yeah.
But Jim McMahon had a defense, so that defense carried him.
Yeah, and even think about it at the times, too, when you had Lance Briggs and Brian Urlacher, Charles Tillman,
Mike Brown.
Yeah, there were a lot of really solid guys that were there. And that's what Chicago's MO has always been. Monsters of the Midway, defense was everything.
And running game.
Running game was everything. And that's the one thing that I think Chicago now, it's a change of scenery for them because they're coming to realization that the one position they've always butchered was quarterback. They never had a quarterback that could take them further. Like, think of it this way. Seattle had always been irrelevant for so long until Russell Wilson arrived.
Until Russell came.
And then Seattle now becomes the team that's on the board. I could think of a few names, like even the LA Rams. The LA Rams felt like, even being in St. Louis, there was a time where you had Kurt Warner. But then after,
Jake, I'm gonna say this too. I understand Jared Goff is now in my division, but I still say that Jared Goff, personally, I did not like Goff coming out of college because, to me, I think his arm could fit the NFL level, and it showed in Los Angeles. But now he's got another chance. He got a coach who likes to eat or take out knees for some odd reason.
And apparently, I don't even know which wide receivers he's really going to throw to at this point because we just don't even know what the offensive weaponry that Jared Goff is going to have.
We don't.
So, and then, of course, you're relying on Captain Kirk up in Minnesota, which, by the way, I thought the kid, the quarterback, I believe, from, Texas A&M or Mississippi State, I thought that kid seemed like it was Minnesota Steel. Because I'm not saying he's a top talented quarterback, but Minnesota's got to get this right afterwards with Kirk Cousins because it doesn't seem like they have an offensive overhaul, but the defense needed to be reshaped. That's one reason. But then the offensive line is getting at least a little better. So does that feel like Kirk Cousins is in the hot seat at this point?
He is. And Kirk Cousins, here's the thing. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but Jake, I posted it in our little group. Minnesota was going to take Justin Fields. If the Bears did not make that move.
I did see that at
if
14,
the Bears did not make
right
that
after
move,
the Chargers. Yeah.
Can you imagine if you were Kirk Cousins, you would be like, what?
Kirk Cousins would be scared out of town.
He was scared out of town. And with another thing with Minnesota, which I was a little upset by with them and their draft, they had a good draft, but there was only one thing I wanted them to focus on. You still believe that Kirk Cousins is the answer? Because he's really not. He's only won one. Good God. I'm getting flashbacks to that game. Okay, the one primetime game, and it would be against the Bears, but, that game. But he's not the quarterback that Minnesota needs, and he's not. And this is the last year of his contract.
Yeah.
And yes,
and of course one of the greatest sales guy we've ever seen in the NFL.
You like that. But this is the problem with Minnesota, and it's Kirk Cousins. Granted, you gave Kurt some weapons. You gave him kind of a good defense, starting to get good defense, because your defense was old. The defense was incredibly old, and your offense was. Oh God, Kirk Cousins was just. Oh God, it's just something about him just screams like I wouldn't even call him backup material. It's just the fact that what do you do if you're Minnesota? I mean, do you wait, or do you, better yet, or shoot? I'm shocked they didn't get Teddy Bridgewater back. That's where Minnesota messed up to me. You had Sam Bradford, you had Case Keenum, and you had Teddy Bridgewater. And personally, to me, out of all three of them, the best one was Case Keenum. Case Keenum almost led them to a Super Bowl. Yeah. A Super Bowl. And you guys let him walk, and you guys let him go to Denver, where quarterbacks after Manning go to die. Well, I wouldn't say that because Drew Lock is actually decent, but he's not. He's not Peyton.
But nowhere even close.
No, but that's my thing. That's my thing with them, and that's why I feel like Minnesota, in my opinion, you did great in the draft, but it's all on Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins doesn't develop, you're screwed. Now the Lions might have a better season than Minnesota, to be honest with you. But I ain't here to talk about Minnesota and the Lions because I've actually grown to like them, even though we're rivals, because we have something to celebrate about. Would you please put up that dummy helmet for me, please, from that 70s show?
Oh Lordy, this thing,
this
thing right here.
Put it down. Put it on the camera. Everybody needs to see this. Okay, if there's any Green Bay Packer fans in the house, I must warn you now. Warning, the following thing you're about to hear is from a salty Bears fan that's been dealing with pain and agony for the last 25 years. If you are suffering from Aaron Rodgers depression, I recommend that you probably lower the stream, just plug your ears up with the nastiest headphones you can finally find. Drink all your things, drink your milk before it clots, and bite mama good night, because here's today. Mal Gooley is not responsible if you literally go switch another team, go to Aaron Rodgers, do not pass go, do not get another Super Bowl ring. Your time is over. And with that being said, let's go back to Mal Gooley. Thank you, Mr. Announcer. No, thank you, Gooley. Thank you, Announcer. Green Bay. Jordan Love. Get ready for Jordan Love, because I'm going to say this right now. You should have never drafted Jordan Love. Personally, a lot of people said you guys should have went wide receiver. But to me, you guys should have went Patrick Queen. You guys need a linebacker in the worst possible way. Blake Martinez could have been the great replacement for Clay Matthews, but you let him walk to New York. Why? Just why, Green Bay? Also, Now, also more turmoil is coming from Green Bay. Apparently, what I've been hearing, Aaron Rodgers would only stay. What I'm hearing, this is just a rumor, if you guys fire your GM.
Yes.
And he's also demanding all of the money. All of the money. Now, when I say all of the money that Green Bay could fathom. I don't think Green Bay has enough to pay him. And why? Because you finally, after all these years, try to address a defense that hasn't been the same since Don Capers. Actually, no. That defense has not been the same since, since Don Capers left. And then you try to rebuild it. Does 2018 ring a bell? Aaron Rodgers was throwing his arm out, and it cost Mike McCarthy his job. Personally, Mike McCarthy should have been fired in 2015, not 2018, because he kept on using Aaron's arm. He kept on having Aaron throw. And I was so surprised that Aaron didn't throw his arm out.
Yeah.
And now you bring in Matt LaFleur, who Aaron Rodgers personally to me doesn't even like. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, he likes Matt LaFleur." That's what we see on TV, but we don't know what happens behind the scenes.
Right.
I don't think he likes LaFleur. And let's be real, Packers fans. You guys can pull ref ball all you want on that NFC Championship game, but there was three things that cost you. That play, Aaron Rodgers had an open hole to get into the end zone. He didn't take it, so he threw the ball away.
And not to mention the three interceptions that got him into field position where they could have changed the score.
Yep, your defense, this whole Tom Brady has 3 interceptions. How does Tom has 3 interceptions and your offense still couldn't take advantage of
in a championship game?
In a championship game. But here's the biggest one to me, and this is why I believe Matt LaFleur won't be the head coach for the Green Bay Packers that long. I give him at least one more year, and then his job's on the hot seat. It's the championship game. You do not, I repeat, you do not, and I repeat, you do not go for a freaking field goal. You don't do it. You go. In the words of the Jets' famous head coach, you play to win the game. You got Aaron Rodgers, who is money in these situations, and you go for 3. That's why I believe Matt LaFleur, to me, I think he's a good coach, but he's a Mike McCarthy. No, he's a Mike McCarthy at name. Because it's like, dude, this is not college. It's not like it's not like the best of 3. It's go big or go home. You didn't do that. You decide to go stupid and just go for the field goal. Really? I get it. You trust your defense to make a big play. But this is Tom Motherfluffin' Brady we talking about. Now, if it was Jameis Winston, I can understand. If it was like, I would say maybe Russell Wilson, I can understand because you guys been owning the Seahawks as of late as well. But no, Aaron Rodgers is ticked off. He's pissed off. He has the right to be pissed. And you know what? I've been torturing my dad for the last 5 days with Green Bay news. And of course, he's threatening to kick me out, but at the same time, I don't care because I've been telling him this for 6 years. And now he's like, well, damn, son, you're right. Oh, that's all I wanted to hear from my father, saying I was right. But yeah, Green Bay, you guys are done. Your time is over. And like I said, you do not pass go. Don't get a 5th championship ring. Jordan Love is going to be the fall of love. Can you hear it? Or better yet, how is it going to feel for Green Bay Packers fans to know that Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded to Denver? And I'm going to say this.
Boy.
If you don't believe this is what's going to be the trade, you guys are going to probably get Drew Lock as your quarterback. Drew Lock, Von Miller, an aging Von Miller at that. Probably do some stupid like Melvin Gordon, who y'all should have got from free agency to begin with. And what does Green Bay get in return? Probably like a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and maybe 2 first-round picks for next year or the year before that. But not like have I thought about that at all. But yeah, Green Bay, get ready to die. If you guys don't do anything, it's the Jordan of love. Now, since I got all that anger and hatred out the way, now we can talk about the Bears draft picks. I've already talked
Yes,
about
I
Kevin
would love
Jenkins.
to hear what your grading was overall through the offseason, because I know it's going to be a best for last for me personally, because I just think Chicago really addressed a bunch of needs and
Offensive
wants
line,
as well. And I
special
mean, like I said, I
teams.
called it for one in the prediction with their offensive line. And sure enough, it paid off. So what were your thoughts throughout it from offseason and the draft overall?
In the beginning, in the offseason, I'm not going to lie, I gave this offseason an F, a solid F, because number one, actually, I'm not even going to give it an F. I'll give it a D minus because number one, Chuck Pagano retiring was the greatest thing that should have happened. Personally, I wish he would have got fired instead of taking the retiree escape out. I think retiring was just no. He knew he was going to get fired. But also getting rid of Kyle Fuller really was the dagger for me. I'm like, this defense is going to get shattered if they go the deep ball. Now, granted, you get Desmond Trufant, who is great, but he's no Kyle Fuller. Thank God you addressed that in the draft. You got an Artie Burns who's coming back from an ACL injury who sucked in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I don't know why they brought him back, but that's a safety. You got Deion Bush, who is short, who shouldn't even play safety. He should be a free safety at that. He's too damn short. That's the only problem with the Bears is safety. The only good safety that you have is Eddie Jackson.
Right.
Now corner, I'm not selling Kendall Villard short because I think Kendall Villard is a good, decent corner, but also Jalen Johnson, personally to me, is probably maybe the third best corner in the NFC North, in my opinion. Great steal by the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
And now for the draft. I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna give this draft an A plus. They addressed it offensive line. They addressed it the quarterback for the future. Those right there gives you a solid A. And now the last couple of picks. You drafted a running back, which everybody flipped out on, and that's not the point. The reason why they did it because Cardell Patterson is gone.
Yeah.
They drafted a wide receiver who is personally the way his draft story is. He's basically Darnell Mooney, who was another steal for the Bears last year in the 4th round. So I'm happy they picked up him, and then they also picked up a great cornerback who reminds me way too much of Mike Brown. The speed, the agility, the smash mouth offense. He fits that system. Because the one thing about Chicago is that we love to talk crap, and we love to get in your heads, and we love to beat the living crap out of you. That's all we care about in Chicago.
Yeah.
And also with a returning Eddie Goldman, the defensive line is straight. I'm happy with it. Also they also drafted also got a linebacker because apparently who I'm shocked nobody took in the draft, who's going to probably be replacing Robert Quinn, which is good because Robert Quinn has been an absolute disappointment. So draft A plus, off season C minus, D plus at best.
Wow.
I'm just being real because that off season was hard. I made three rants.
It was
three rants on my channel.
It was honestly hard. And again, like I'm in the same position as you are with Chicago because I was not sure what the direction was going to be in the end, but it started to really kind of come out well in the draft. And I think that's initially what I believe will be Chicago's bounce back at this point. But who knows? I really do feel like that given the time, Justin Fields will be successful. I just feel like that with him and Matt Nagy, it's going to work out very, very well. If Nagy gets Trubisky to a playoff, like
he can get
think
Justin
about what
Fields.
he could do with Justin Fields
He
on
can
a
get
different
Justin
level.
I would say he could take Justin Fields to the NFC Championship, or better yet, the Super Bowl. And oh my God, the day if Justin Fields is the guy to take us to the Super Bowl, I am calling off work for a whole freaking week. I will get drunk and go to Chicago and get drunk so hard. I would probably
Oh
be on
man.
I would probably be on Sears Tower, drunk out of my mind.
I feel you right there, man. I really do feel you. Well, first and foremost, I appreciate you coming on, Malguli. I really do appreciate you sharing your thoughts with the Chicago Bears. And like I said, for all of our viewers up over here, you guys love wrestling content. Definitely check out Malcolm Bean, Malguli, at the Ghoulie Zone. Definitely check out all of his content with Cubs, Bears, Blackhawks, and of course the Chicago Bulls as well. He's got all of the contents from there. Really do appreciate you, man. And good luck to the Chicago Bears, and good luck to Justin Fields. And we'll see exactly what next season has in store for us, my friend.
Yes, and good luck to your Chargers. And also one more thing, since you talked about the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are not in the playoffs. They are finally realized that they can tank. Thank God.
Now
right,
the
Jake.
question is, what do you do with Taves and Kane?
You keep Kane. You get rid of Taves. I know people are going to shoot me for saying that, and you get rid of Duncan Keith.
Yes,
You start getting younger.
Yes.
You get younger. Get younger. Get a real defender. Get a real center. It's time to stop relaying in the past. The only person on that Blackhawks team who has earned his spot in legendary is Patrick Kane. You guys get rid of Patrick Kane, I would really choke somebody. But all right, Jake, you have a great show. Go Bears, Bear Nation, and congrats to your Chargers as well, because they did a fantastic job in the draft as well. I'll give them an A+.
Oh, absolutely, man. I cannot wait for what this season's going to bring on. Take care, my friend. Have a good night, and we will definitely see you soon.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace. Well, there you go, Matt Gooley in the Ghoulie Zone here on the Spotlight Sports Network and the Snake Sports Talk Show. And, of course, coming at me live as well, we have at least two more people that we're interviewing. So just for everybody's sake, this is honestly like a 2-hour show, of course. So we have a lot to cover up on it because the draft was absolutely just ecstatic, and we had so much fun covering it. But let's see exactly how our colleague who covers up on all the Raiders and, of course, calling us here via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard is, of course, the one and only Darian Hopkins of the Spotlight Raiders Talk, talking about his Las Vegas Raiders. So I know we all saw your reaction to round one of the draft, and what in the hell that the Raiders and John Gruden and Mike Mayock are going to do. You've got to tell me what exactly was the thought process going into the draft room with these two.
Okay. But thanks for having me on, Jake. I really do appreciate being on the Snake Sports Talk Show. For people that don't know, my channel is the Spotlight Raiders Talk. You can definitely check it out there. I just made it to 5,000 subscribers on that channel. So thank you for having me on, Jake. I really do appreciate it. But I wasn't really too ecstatic with the pick at number 17. And here's why. Because we really thought that, Trayvon Mortrig was there at 17, but you see that he fell.
Yeah.
But knowing that we took Alex Leatherwood number 1 as our 17th overall pick, I was not a big fan of it because I know he was a round 2, round 3 type of guy. And knowing that if Morrig would have been there, we would have got him in the second. But from what I was hearing, that Alex Leatherwood was going to get picked up in the first. And Mike Mayock and John Gruden really liked this guy, knowing that he could play multiple positions on the offensive line. Now, this was a Tom Cable pick. It wasn't more of a John Gruden pick. It wasn't a Mike Mayock pick. It was a Tom Cable pick. And Tom Cable is one of the best offensive lineman coaches in the league. And you know that one thing about the Raiders' offensive line is that he wants to make sure everybody that can play every position on the offensive line.
Right.
And once I put on the tape for Alex Leatherwood, and once I put on the tape watching him in college, I was mad initially but I was not mad after I did my research on Alex Leatherwood. I still think it was a reach of some sorts because I feel like Christian Darrisaw was there.
Right.
But they saying like Christian Darrisaw would not fit the type of offensive system that we were looking for, knowing that we're a power running team. And that's where Alex Leatherwood is his strongest suit at.
Yeah.
Is running is power blocking. So I understand why they made the pick. At the end of the day, I still feel like it's a reach. But my initial reaction was I didn't like the pick at all. Y'all saw my reaction on the live. I did not like it.
And think of it think of it this way, because also too, when we were evaluating a lot of the top offensive linemen that were taken in the first round of the draft, because of course, the Jets ended up sneaking their way in to get Elijah Vera Tucker. Detroit ended up taking Penei Sewell. The Chargers lucked out at 13 to getting Rashawn Slater that just fell in their hands. And then, of course, Minnesota with Christian Darrisaw. And I looked at all of their overall grades. They were all sitting at the 90s, at least by the highest of 93. And then when I looked at Alex Leatherwood, he was like the oddball in the 80 grade. And that was one that really kind of scratched my head of why, with it being such a deep offensive line draft, that they'd go and get this kid knowing of what are some of the tangibles that he has. Can he at least, play in certain positions where he can give Derek Carr enough space and enough time for him to throw and execute the plays? That's kind of the ones that really scratched my head on in that position.
Well, I mean, look at the pick what we did with Colton Miller. It was more of a reach when we got Colton Miller, and look how he turned out.
Yeah. So
you got to really congratulate Tom Cable on developing a guy like Colton Miller, because mind you, Colton Miller was a first round pick, and it wasn't a sexy pick. And
right.
Alex Leatherwood is not a sexy pick, but he could come in and be coached up to a point where he could be an all-pro left tackle, right tackle, guard, no matter where you put him at.
Right.
I just feel like, the pre-draft grades and the overalls, I mean, I got a little bit into that, which I really don't get into, but I think Alex Leatherwood is really coming to, he already said that he wants to come in and be a dog.
Right.
So when I saw the press conference and said that he wants to be a dog, I'm like, okay, I like his confidence. I like the fact that he wants to come in and prove everybody why he was the 17th best player in the draft in the first round. So I wasn't really too big on it, but I'm happy he's part of the nation. Mm-hmm. He's a nice size. He has a nice frame. And he's just going to learn, So we reshaping his offensive line, and I can't wait to see what he does.
And think about this, too, because that's also big shoes to fill because of the fact of losing Rodney Hudson, losing Richie Incognito, and losing a bunch of important pieces.
We actually have Richie back. Richie re-signed back with us.
Yeah. Oh, good. So at least having that piece back into the line. So that's where, you're going to have at least a couple holes, and that's where they got to fill them up. They got to be ready to play up at the line and hoping that Derek Carr is going to have support for him to throw to his weapons. Now, let's talk about the Trayvon Moore pick, because I know you and we both agreed on the same mindset of what needed to happen. The defense, the secondaries needed to be fixed. Now you have Gus Bradley in the picture. I feel like, from experience of seeing him with the Chargers, he was a guy that was really getting the best out of his secondaries at times. But I do feel like coming into a new system in Las Vegas with brand new breed secondaries that are hybrid and also at the same time have a lot of really good potential upside. Having Trayvon Moore there, which I felt like the Raiders, and initially they made up for the first pick, but they addressed their issue well. How is Trayvon Moore really going to come into the secondary position with Gus Bradley and even with guys like Damon Arnett and a bunch of others that could be really good potential upsides for the Raiders?
Well, you know Gus Bradley's defense. You know he likes that single high safety that can play in a cover 3.
Right.
Now you got to see that Trayvon Moorick is going to come in, and then you had a safety that's going to convert the linebacker that can play both, which is Devon Diablo that we got in the 3rd round from Virginia Tech. So that was a steal in itself. But we got a few things that we'll definitely get into. But I think Trayvon Moorick is going to come in and be that cover safety that we don't have.
Yeah.
Jeff Heath is not really that cover safety. Levette is not that cover safety. And we know Carl Joseph and Jonathan Abram, they're going to be more box safeties. So
Right.
if you put Jonathan Abram with Moorick or you put Carl Joseph with Moorick, either way, we're going to have a safety that could cover and play in the box to actually be a complete safety. Now, the reason that he fell and the fact that we traded up to go get him is because of the fact that people say that he was dropping because he had a back injury and he had tape during his pro day, and they said it was like his MRI was not good. But I feel like that is BS, and I'm going to say why. Because it's BS because during his pro day, y'all should have mentioned that. And it wasn't mentioned, It wasn't reported, it was enough to state that he had a back injury. That's why he fell. So at the end of the day, you let a guy like Richie Grant and all those other guys go before him, knowing that Moorick is the best safety in the draft.
Right.
He was the best DB in the draft. And he slipped in the 2nd round for us. And we went up and we went from number 48 to 43 to go get him because we was not going to let him slip no more. And I'm happy that the Raiders, all the Raiders YouTubers was ecstatic because that's the guy that we wanted at 17. And I'm kind of happy that we got him at 43 instead of 17 because now we can probably pay him, not that 1st round money, but he's going to be worth it. He's going to be a Raider for a long time.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of positive upsides when it comes to Trayvon Moorick, and that's why I'm like, I'm actually kind of excited for this pick because I think he does have the way that TCU was really running their secondaries and their defenses. I'm sure we've known this from a couple of really good, notable TCU defenders as well, that they've had really good potential upsides from the secondary position. And speaking of ecstatic, YouTubers with BL being here up in the chat, he's always ecstatic, but I think this is a good thing for the Raiders moving forward. And of course, wanting to get into this conversation with you here is Darian Hopkins of the Spotlight Raiders Talk, here with me on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Last year, of course, the Raiders started up at 6-3. And we know about John Gruden's histories of going 6-3 out of the 140 teams that have gone there and they've made the playoffs, but yet playoffs had not been his luck. My thing of this is with the Raiders, because it is a completely different look. Now, you still do have superstars like Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs. Are we going to expect at least a positive upsides? Because knowing Henry Ruggs was last year's 1st round talent, and it didn't seem like that there was a whole lot that was happening in his rookie year. Could we potentially see something different with this offense amongst the wide receiver position, let alone a new defensive schematics, look from Gus Bradley altogether? And could this be a new and improving Raiders?
Yes, I mean, I know that it's like I said, like with the Raiders, we're not a sexy football team. We're not going to be the ones that go 13-3 or 12-4. I mean, yeah, I give Gruden a lot of stuff. I give Gruden a lot of crap. He did start out when it comes to 4-12, 7-9, and then 8-8. So it's kind of improving, but improving slowly. When it comes to Henry Ruggs, you can understand Henry Ruggs did come in and make immediate impact in the Panthers game in that week 1, but he ended up getting hurt and staying out for a long time. But you have to think about it too, that Nelson Aguilar was that number 1 receiver that we had, and it kind of took away a lot of targets from Henry Ruggs. And then Brian Edwards was our 3rd round pick, where he got hurt too, but you can see the potential upside in both of those. But now we have a new whole wide receiving core now, where we brought in Willie Snead from the Baltimore Ravens. We brought in John Brown from the Buffalo Bills. We brought more speed in. There's some other wide receivers that, we got 2 wide receivers, undrafted free agents that we brought in, one from Oklahoma State. I forgot the other guy's name. But we
not
still
to mention, too, still holding on to Hunter Renfrow as one of your best wild card receivers.
Yeah, we have Hunter Renfrow, Zay Jones, Brian Edwards. We have a lot of wide receivers that's going to compete in training camp. So when it comes to this offense, John Gruden's going to have to open up the playbook. That's what he's going to have to do. He cannot be conservative on certain downs, and that's what really hurt us last year. But as far as the semantics for the defense, I think Gus Bradley is going to have us be more aggressive because you see what he did. We really didn't address the defensive line in the draft because we really addressed it in free agency with Yannick Ngakoue. And then we still have Carl Nassib and Cleveland Farrell and Max Crosby.
Right.
We did get rid of Maurice Hurst, but we still got Jonathan Hankins. We got rid of Arden Key. Arden Key was one of our guys that we thought that was going to turn into something and didn't turn into anything. But I think Gus Bradley is getting ready to get this linebacking core back into play and get this secondary back into play. And I'm not looking for a top 10 defense, but we're looking for a defense that can finish games for us. Because if you look at it, when we were 6-3, we were winning majority of those games in the second half.
Right.
It's just defensively we could not get over the hump. So that's why I can't really put the blame all on John Gruden because John Gruden, he hired Paul Gunther. We all know that. We all know that he was a terrible defensive coordinator, and he waited too long to fire him, and that's why we were able to not finish. We ended up finishing the year 8-8.
Right.
So you could put some on John Gruden, you could put some on Paul Gunther, but overall, I think this team is going to look good. And actually, we did address the defensive line. We ended up getting Malcolm Koos from Buffalo. Now, Buffalo brings great defensive ends. And mind you, that's another defensive end. That's what Khalil Mack went. Mm-hmm. Now we went back to Buffalo and got another defensive end. That was a sleeper pick in the draft. And Tyler Gillespie and Nate Hobbs, some cornerbacks came from Illinois and in Missouri. So we got a lot of pieces on defense that Gus Bradley can really work with. And hopefully this team, we get over the hump and get more wins than losses in this upcoming season.
Yeah, hopefully, it'll be a really good upside for the Raiders moving forward because, of course, this AFC West, it's so competitive knowing that, you have offensive lines, you have quarterbacks, you have wide receivers, you have a run game. And then not to mention, too, the defenses are really starting to kind of shape up well. Because the ultimate thing is, and what's going to be interesting is seeing what Denver's next move is really going to be after they had picked Patrick Surtain in the first round to strengthen up their defense along with Kyle Fuller and so many others. And then, of course, Kansas City beefing up their offensive line. The Chargers doing just about the same thing. And they look like they're serious now to where they could really get competitive. So it feels like the Raiders do have their hands full with a lot of these talents that are coming at them. But at the same time, altogether as an AFC as a whole, is going to be something that I think is going to be worth watching. So hopefully that there are some really good positive upsides for the Raiders moving forward.
Absolutely. I think the AFC West is one of the best divisions in the league and one of the best divisions in the AFC in itself. So when it comes to, I think when it comes to the AFC West, I think we was one of the best divisions in this draft to get the best players. Patrick Surtain, they address their defense with Denver Broncos. Then you address your offensive line with Slater with the Chargers. And then we upgrade our offensive line, getting Leatherwood in the first round. And then you have Kansas City. I don't think Kansas City traded for a lot of their, picks to get to the Baltimore Ravens. But at the same time, I still feel like they really addressed their offensive line in free agency. So when it comes to free agency, we really did our thing for the Raiders. Chargers did their thing, and Broncos did their. I think every team did their thing. When it comes, it's going to be very challenging. We finished second in the AFC West at 8-8. So we're going to try to see if we can get over that hump. It's going to be a competitive division and a competitive AFC.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see it all, man. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be an absolute jam-packed season when it's all said and done, knowing that we got the extra game. And so let's see exactly who wants to be in the playoffs badly, because that's ultimately where it's going to show the real men from the boys. You know, and so that's where I think we're going to see a lot of fun with that. It's going to be jam-packed. I can't wait for next season to start up. So, but it's a lot of good stuff with you, man. It's always so enjoyable talking with you and talking football and everything else with you.
One question, Jake. You know, it's been rumors about Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. I've been hearing about it, man. I'm surprised you're not actually that.
So, well, let me ask you then real quick, then what's your thoughts on this? Because, of course, BL's really been asking about this. So, what's your thoughts up on this? Is there something that's buzzing right now on the phones currently?
I mean, I hope not, because don't get me wrong, Aaron Rodgers is a Super Bowl MVP. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's a reigning MVP from last year. I completely understand all of that. But I'm not giving up like 7 first-rounders and giving up Max Crosby or Henry Ruggs and these young players just to get an Aaron Rodgers that only has, 3 to 4 years left in him?
Right.
Knowing Derek Carr is way younger, and even though Carr is going into his 8th season, I think he's still younger than Aaron Rodgers at this moment. So why would I risk that in so many ways to go get Derek Carr? Now, people, you're going to have your Derek Carr haters, man. He puts up the same amount of numbers as Aaron Rodgers if you want to look at touchdown interception ratio, if you want to look at completion percentage, if you want to look at passing yards. He's put up almost the same amount of numbers. It's just two different completely offenses with Matt LaFleur and John Gruden. So they have two different ways of playing quarterback. People really need to break it down. Like, yes, Aaron Rodgers would love to come to Las Vegas, but how much are we giving up? So if we trade Aaron Rodgers, right, that would be $37 million in a cap hit for the Las Vegas Raiders. Why would we risk that type of cap hit to go get Aaron Rodgers? It just doesn't make any sense. You have to make it make sense if we want to go out and get him. If you want to win a Super Bowl right now, even with the defense that we got, we have to see what Gus Bradley could do with this defense before we actually see if Aaron Rodgers can take us to the Super Bowl. Let's see what this defense could do with Gus Bradley under the rein, and let Derek Carr see how Derek Carr looks with this defense. And then we can silence all those critics then. Because if this defense holds up for Derek Carr, knowing that our offense was averaging 30-plus points a game, with Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers should go somewhere else, honestly. Yeah. I don't want him to come in our division because they talk about him with the Broncos too. But if it's going to be a scenario there, he's going to go to Denver. But at the same time, don't get me wrong, he's a great player. I love Aaron Rodgers, but I would take Derek Carr right now because he's been loyal to the Raiders. He's been drafted here, and he don't want to leave here. So I don't blame him. But yeah. Yeah, that's why I had to break it down like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I'm on the same boat with you because it's just like it's complete disrespect for Derek Carr and knowing that he's absolutely enjoying this ride in Las Vegas for, even for the inaugural season and what next season's going to really bring up. So it's like, why tamper with that? And ultimately it's not like he's not putting up the numbers enough to really making the Raiders competitive as much as they possibly can. And it's just like, I understand with how Raider Nation feels with this because they want to win games. They want more wins. They want more of this and that. But you have to look at it from deep down in the core and what the Raiders are willing to do to convert to getting those wins and hopefully at some point make a lot of noise in the NFL.
Right. I 100% agree with you there, bro.
All righty, man. So I appreciate you with your thoughts upon that, man. It's always good when we have like recent news or anything like that seems to be buzzing around. I mean, I always have to be in the know-how and what's going on and what's, what seems to be potentially happening or if it's going to happen. So, but really good talking with you, my friend. And we'll see exactly what next season is really going to bring. But ultimately, what do you give this grade for the Raiders?
Right now I'm giving it a B minus. Due to the fact that we didn't really address the linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Devon Diablo is a safety, but his size is a linebacker. So if he has the size of a linebacker and was playing safety,
Mm-hmm.
the guy is a hell of a tackler. So have him come down in the box and convert to that linebacker position, and compete. So I think it's a B minus for me. I still think that Alex Leatherwood thing was still kind of a reach of some sort, but I can completely understand why they went with him. They felt like he could have been a Raider, and that's what they did. So yeah, B minus for me.
All righty. Well, we'll see exactly what the end of the show is really going to bring up, since I'll be breaking down the AFC side of things, and then hopefully tomorrow breaking on the NFC. So have a good night, my friend. It's always good talking with you, and hopefully we'll see exactly some good things for the Raiders come next season, man, because we obviously can't wait to see what you have to say, and especially congratulations also at 5,000 subscribers, folks. That's a huge milestone for any YouTube creator, and not to mention a content creator as a whole. Having 5,000 subscribers up on YouTube, it's a hell of an accomplishment. Good for you, man. Great stuff, and just keep at it with what you're doing with the Raiders.
Thank you so much, Jake. I really do appreciate it, man. Really appreciate you being on the Spotlight Sports Network. And, shout out to you for putting out these shows, man. It's been an honor to come up on here.
Absolutely, man. Not a problem. Always good having you, man. Have a good night. Take care of yourself, and we will see you when the next season rolls on.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
All right. Talk to you later. Man, it's always good talking with Darian up there on the Spotlight Raiders Talk. And so, of course, we've got one other real good colleague as well who covers up on the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll definitely get her side of the side of things with what the Eagles went through their draft. And it's really interesting. And so we'll have her up here in a second, because I really have to say this. My thing is with the Philadelphia Eagles, because they have a lot they have to fix up. And it's interesting. It's really interesting because now you have Nick Sirianni as a head coach. They finally addressed the wide receiver thing. I mean, Devontae Smith was absolutely what they needed. And that's one thing that I'm just like, I think he's a hell of a pick. And I really do think that the Philadelphia Eagles, hopefully that there are some positive upsides from here. But joining me right now to discussing about the Philadelphia Eagles and what this draft and, of course, the rest of the offseason has brought them via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard is, of course, Nakia William, a.k.a. is Key, and she is always in the building, as, of course, she's in the building of the Spotlight Sports Network and the Snake Sports Talk Show. So, Key, how ecstatic have you been since finally Howie Roseman realized that the one big problem that they've had was the wide receiver position? Does this feel like Philadelphia right now is starting to get back up onto the train tracks, or are we kind of seeing at least a little bit of the same from the last two seasons?
First off, always a pleasure of joining you on this Snake Talk Show as usual. I'm always been doing it all over the place. But this is the one draft that Howie could not definitely mess up, because we were at the number 6 pick, and then he decides to trade out of the number 6 pick to go to 12. Now, did I feel like Devontae Smith could have been there at 12? We don't know. But the top two cornerbacks went off the board, and I knew Dallas wanted one of them.
Mm-hmm. So
it only made sense to trade back up to number 10, because the Giants were going to get Smith, and he was still there.
Right.
So, of all teams, Jeff called Jerry. He was like, hey, what do we want to do? Do we both want to screw the Giants over again? No, why not? Let's go. So, we moved to number 10, gave him a third-round pick and some bubble gum, and we landed Devontae.
And your reaction was priceless the second we saw Devontae Smith finally go to the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, this is a talent that for the last couple of years, I mean, you drafted Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, who Justin Jefferson was second amongst Rookie of the Year candidates. Also, not to mention Devontae Adams was whiffed after taking J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. So it's like there were a lot of things that the Eagles could have done.
Exactly. Like, we could have got DJ Metcalf. We could have got Devontae Adams. We pick a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Don't know how he was thinking there. I get it, the size. But we didn't see him on the field.
Yeah.
J.J. who? J.J. where? He about to be out the door here. Another team will probably utilize him, and it'll probably fine. That's usually what happens when somebody doesn't work out in Philly. They go somewhere else or a monster. And look at Aguilar over there with the Raiders.
Yeah.
When he was with the Raiders, he performed. It happens each and every time, not just football. Every Philly person that was on the team goes somewhere else and kills it. The great late Reggie was great here.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Green Bay, won the championship.
Yeah.
So, but I'm super ecstatic for Devontae Smith. He's teaming up with Jalen Hurts once again. I think that's going to do a 1-2 combo. Smith can play all positions on the receiver, whether it's outside or inside. I think they're going to move Rager inside to the slot, have him on the outside, have Travis Fulton on the other side, Greg Ward. It's going to be a young squad again, but I think they can get over it. I think it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting.
Absolutely. And, my question to you is with this one because of the fact of – so Carson Wentz is out the building. He's up in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very, very different. Obviously, the sure starter is going to be Jalen Hurts. There's no doubt about that. Now, knowing, of course, they do still have Nate Sudfeld, and they also now bring in Joe Flacco.
Sudfeld is a 49er. He's gone.
Oh, wow. So he's gone. Okay. Well, then at that point, now you got, Joe Flacco and whatever else that you have at the quarterback, depth. But to me, also now having a new head coaching position in Nick Sirianni. And so my thing is now having Devontae Smith reunited with Jalen Hurts. Does this feel like that this Eagles offense could maybe potentially make up for at least the last couple of losses that they've suffered in the last couple seasons just before the Super Bowl winning season with Carson Wentz and then with Nick Foles? Could we see something completely different about this Eagles team? Now, of course, the other question could be are the secondaries solid? Could the defense really put up the production enough to shut down opposing offenses? Your thoughts about what the NFC East and the rest of the conference may look like for the Eagles moving forward?
I still think our secondary is going to be a little shaky. I thought maybe Howie would have kind of sort of addressed that during the draft. He did in the later rounds, but everybody is second guessing that second round pick we got in Landon Dickerson. But to me, I get it. He's had 2 ACLs. He's only 23. But why the hell not? This guy can play all the positions on the offensive line, including center. We don't know. We definitely know this is going to be Jason Kelsey's last season. Brandon Brooks, we don't know how healthy he's going to be. In the last 2 seasons, he hasn't been here. Whether it's an Achilles, ACL injury, he hasn't been on the field. And Brandon Brooks is a hell of an offensive lineman. He's offensive guard. Lane Johnson was down for an ankle injury. So our offensive line was depleted. Jason Peters, he's old. I'm glad he's gone. JP, you did a service to Philadelphia, and I appreciate you, but I'm so glad you're not on the team no more. Jordan Mailata, finally. We drafted him 3 to 4 years ago. He's finally getting on the field, and the boy's a monster. He's 6'7", 300 some odd pounds. He played rugby. He got that lineman built. He got that Philly toughness in him. So I like him there with Landon Dickerson. If he can make the opening roster, he will be good. Like, I see why Philly fans didn't like him because, again, he's injury prone at 23, already 2 ACL injuries, but if you're expected to get some type of injuries when you're a lineman because you can play all 5 positions.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a stud to have on your team that you can just throw him anywhere.
Yeah.
And he's going to protect Jalen Hurts. I think with this line that comes back and if we all are healthy, Jalen Hurts will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts will be fine behind there, and then the offensive line can open up the holes for the running back.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders, I think Miles Sanders will have a breakout year this year. It's not going to be like Doug, and I don't know what it was with him not running the ball. Sirianni is going to run the rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I honestly agree because this is a time that, Miles Sanders, we're hoping that, the production goes up because I was really excited for the fact that Miles Sanders, being a part of this Philadelphia organization in this run game was going to be the absolute difference maker. And so hopefully there's going to be a lot more reps. There's going to be a lot more snaps coming in the run game and hoping that this will be successful for them. And who knows, because how I felt about Nick Sirianni early on, because it just seemed like the first interview, and we know this for business, when you have the first interview of a business, you're hoping that you're coming in this thing with full confidence. You're going to nail exactly everything that you pinpoint, you have a direction. And it seemed like Nick Sirianni just butchered the first interview. And then next thing you know, and I mean, I don't know if you believe it or not, but the rock, paper, scissors, strategy, apparently, that seems to be a big thing.
Yes. I get it. I'm not doubting that he's not football knowledge worthy. I don't doubt that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think he's just over, he's excited. He's hyping himself up, which I love that. I just want to see him hopefully transfer that into some good football sense and knowledge when it comes to players. As far as the defensive side of the ball goes, I mean, we did get a safety in a corner in the draft. We did a that in the 4th round. We drafted Zach McPherson from Texas Tech, and I actually like this kid. So I think he's going to be good. Because no Jalen Mills. Rodney McLeod came off of an ACL injury. You know how hard that is to get back into football once you tore an ACL.
Yep.
And Darius Slay can't do it all by himself.
Yeah, that's true too. And so that's kind of something that Darius Slay definitely needs at least a little bit of help on. But if you think about it, I mean, looking into this NFC East picture, because you're talking about the Giants right now, that they're getting serious about Daniel Jones and knowing that he's got to be successful because the Giants want to be in the playoffs again. This has to be a make it or break it year for them. The Cowboys were kind of questionable for me as the fact of Micah Parsons, and then they go and get the corner from Kentucky, and it's all and they get Jabril Cox. So it's like linebackers is so overcrowded for them. And I just keep thinking, again, the secondary still needs to have, the help and everything that they possibly could get because Trayvon Diggs can't do it himself. So It's interesting to see what Dallas could do. But then again, they might prove us wrong in other parts. But then you also finally look at the Washington football team where they make the playoffs. They bring in now Ryan Fitzpatrick, and it looks like the defense just looks loaded with Ron Rivera. So it seems like the Eagles got a lot on their hands to really kind of reshape, refocus, new coaching staff, new playbook, new players. It just kind of seems like Philadelphia is somewhat starting from scratch, but they got to pick up exactly where they left out at after the Super Bowl.
Right. I agree. They got to, start fresh. Like I said, Jalen, we got Carson Wentz out of here. I mean, Carson, for me, okay, I get it. Last year, offensive line was depleted. But also, Carson, you still get paid millions to go out and play football. I get it. No line to protect you, but still, you still have to make decisions. You still are an athlete, and at the end of the day, you still are a quarterback, and you should know what to do. Like, he just played horrible, and for him to say he knew he was done after he got benched, do you really, really think we're going to ride you playing a crappy season when you got Jalen Hurts just not going to kill us to put him in because he wasn't going nowhere.
Right.
I mean, we could have, but we all know how that lasted.
Right. And basically how that locker room really felt after all that happened.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I like to start from scratch. We got Doug out of here. We got a new coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. We'll see how this goes. We did draft a lot of D linemen, which was shocking to me. But then as I sat here and realized, I'm like, okay, I know how we like to swap in and out to make sure they're fresh for the fourth quarter. I know we got your Fletcher Coxes and your Javon Hargraves. I know we picked somebody up to replace Malik Jackson. So we got Milton Williams from Louisiana Tech. That's another body we got in the third round pick. I was questionable. I'm like, why did we go here? No, we should have picked up a good safety or whatever. Or we could have got Samuels, or we got Dickerson in the second round. It's so many things that we could have did. But we did address the corner in the secondary situations. We did pick up the safety from USC, I think it was that. Trying to think of his name. It's like Ronald Hayes or something, or I could be wrong. I'm not looking at it right in my sight right now, but we did pick him up. And then in the unrestricted free agent, we actually picked up a quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, if he makes the team, like I would want him to make the team. One, he can be a third stringer, and he can look up to Jalen Hurts and the Flacco. We picked up Wake Forest's quarterback, Jamie Newman. Now, he set out the whole season. So, it was a gamble to pick him up as well. And I heard that they said that was the worst thing he could do because he was a transfer to Georgia, and then he went to Wake Forest. They said he was at his peak of his career, and then, he decided to sit out. So, he's getting a lot of haters right now, and critics talking about him. Oh, well, maybe if you didn't sit out, you probably would have went, probably top 2 rounds. You could have set out. So hopefully he makes the team and proves everybody wrong.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, hopefully a lot of these guys could prove everybody wrong and start turning the heads of some of these critics and analysts. And hopefully it'll be a positive upside for them as well. There was one question here from BL is what's your game win prediction at the very least for the Eagles?
Since, we got to now put in that 17th game, we got to do some math. Can be 8-8. So, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say we'll be 500, for right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I honestly, I'll say we can be 8-19. But I've seen, like I said, this year we're playing the AFC West.
Yeah.
And the NFC South, that's going to be tough. Two tough divisions. So I don't, maybe 6 to 7 games at the least we'll win. I'll be shocked if we win more than that. That's what I'm saying about the 8 and 9 market because we're building, we're gelling. So if they win more than 8 games, I'm gonna be shocked.
Yeah, I mean I think a lot of us would be shocked as well. But even so, that's a good move in the right direction for the Philadelphia Eagles if that's the case. So just basically grading all throughout the offseason and also through the draft. What would you give your overall grade for this Philadelphia Eagles offseason and what it may look like for them moving forward and hoping this may be something that could be absolutely different in Nick Sirianni's system. So what would you grade him?
I'm going to say a strong B-. I totally forgot we did pick up Anthony Harris as another safety from the Vikings. So we did get secondary help and we drafted some young guys. So secondary is going to, I think, will be okay. But is it like the Super Bowl season? Of course not. But again, you got to build, you got to gel. Like I said, the defense, everybody can stick around. And then the draft, I mean, we got these young guys, the line, the defense. We want to keep our young guys fresh, so I get that in the fourth quarter. I always think our defensive line was solid. I think we just need to get to the quarterback and pressure more, so hopefully the defense coordinator will do that more. I wasn't always bad with our defensive line. It was just more as when you got into the linebackers, and then the secondary is where our weakness was. And for us not to address the linebacking core was suspect for me. But I think we did pick up a line. We did pick up a linebacker, Jacoby Stevens, in one of those later rounds. He's from USC or LSU, one of them teams. But we did pick somebody up. You know, we just got to draft these guys and groom them and see, because we really can't judge a book by their cover until they get into the NFL game speed. We don't know how these players are in college,
Right.
so we can't judge a book by the cover. We can't say, "Oh my gosh, he's trash. Why did we get him?" And then later on, we're going to be cheering, "Yes, thank God we drafted you." So I give the Eagles a good solid B- on the off season so far. I'm just ready for the camps and OTAs to start, and let's get these players to gel together. That's something the football teams that I know they can do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll just see. We'll just wait and see exactly what will happen with the Philadelphia Eagles, hoping that this will be something that could be put, on the back burner for them moving forward. But I think this will be an interesting season all the way around. I'm excited for what the season is really going to bring out. So hopefully some best of luck for the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward. I think this will be a really, really good one. But it was really good talking with you, Key, and very, very good having you on here as well. And shout out to you as well on Key in the Building, which covers all of the Flyers, the Phillies, the Sixers, and, of course, Eagles content. We really do appreciate it. And let's see exactly what the Eagles may do next year and what it may look like with Nick Sirianni there, at the helm. So hopefully –
One thing I do know, you're going to hear a lot of Hurts to Smith a lot. That's going to be heard definitely a lot. Number 1 and number 6 that's going to be the tag team duo. That's going to be the duo right there. And I don't know, I might be setting the bar higher or whatever, but Devontae Smith could be in that group, could be Rookie of the Year.
Oh, I cannot wait to see that. That I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch right there with Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith connection. I think that's going to be one that Philly fans are just going to be super ecstatic for. I cannot wait for it. So, all righty, Keith, thank you so much for joining me here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Have a good night. Take care of yourself, and hopefully we will see you soon. And good luck to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Later, because we play y'all this year, too.
Yeah, yes, we do. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for that. All righty, take care. So, of course, Nakia Williams, a.k.a. Key in the Building as well, as we mentioned it to you guys, who covers up a lot of Philadelphia sports. And long story short, I just look at this from every single one of the draft picks. Now, of course, I am going to be talking about the AFC side of things. I think that's one that's going to be, it really is going to be very interesting. And I think it is going to be one. I think it's going to be one that this year alone is going to, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's so many different headliners that are just going to take us all by surprise. I think by the end of the day, you're really going to see a lot of good stuff happen here in this league. Like I said, it's an extravagant year. It was an extravagant draft. I think it was one that was just a lot of fun all the way around. So, of course, I did mention about the NHL picture, and currently what we're seeing as of right now, and just kind of giving at least a little long story short before I start my best for last from here, because I know a lot of people love listening to what I have to say from this. But so far in the pictures in the West, we still have the Vegas Golden Knights, the Colorado Rockies, or the Colorado Avalanche, I'm sorry. Minnesota Wild ended up punching their ticket in the North, up in Toronto, up in Canada. We have the Toronto Maple Leafs so far, so 3 spots are still open. In the Central, you've got the Carolina Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, and then finally we have a full picture in the East with the Washington Capitals, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the New York Islanders, and the Boston Bruins. So my thought of this in the NHL is that it's going to be interesting to see how the playoffs feel. Now, I will say this. I won't have my entire Stanley Cup playoff picture until all of the pieces are filled. But there are a lot of teams that I think are going to have the hot hands. Now, of course, tonight you had the Vegas Golden Knights against the Minnesota Wild, which the Wild ended up upsetting the Golden Knights 6-5 late in the period. The Wild seemed to be like one of those wild card teams. Nobody saw this team really exceeding expectations like they have this year. St. Louis kind of took a little bit of a backseat, and right now they're fighting for that fourth spot in the West. Right now in Canada in the North, there's 3 spots available, so they're still waiting on that. And then one more spot in the Central. So there's a lot of fight that's going to be going on this year. But we all kind of knew what this year was going to be for hockey. It was fighting, of course, for health and longevity. And ultimately, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch by the time we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. But there are going to be some teams that are going to have the hot hand. They're going to have the momentum. And we'll just have to see exactly. We'll wait and see as we get there. When the Stanley Cup playoffs are finally around the corner, I cannot wait for them. But I'm excited for it. I really, really am excited for it. So, all right. So my best for last. I'm grading all of the off seasons from all the teams in the AFC. This is probably the most jam-packed AFC that we may see. Trevor Lawrence is going to Jacksonville. Carson Wentz is in Indianapolis. There are a lot of different moves that have been happening in the AFC, and I am loving it. So I'm going to be ranking these teams here from the draft grades. So here we go. Draft and off-season grades for every team. Here we go. So my first thing is the Baltimore Ravens. One thing the Ravens did address, they lost Matt Judon. And it's kind of interesting to see how the Baltimore Ravens are really going to play out without their star linebacker, but they still do have a lot of really good defensive talents from the secondaries up to the front lines. And they also do have a tough offensive line. Now, they did also lose Mark Ingram in the process, but they have J.K. Dobbins from last year's draft. My thing about the Baltimore Ravens, they needed to get some wide receivers. They needed to get at least some good specialists on defense. And they finally did in the draft. They managed to end up getting they ended up managing to get Rashad Bateman from Minnesota, over the top wide receiver, 6 foot. I'm gonna give the Baltimore Ravens here a B+, because my thing about this is they went and got their wide receiver. This is going to prove if Lamar Jackson can throw over top. It's nothing against Marquise Brown, but they needed that in their wide receiver position. I think they nailed it in the draft. They also pick up at least a couple pieces on the offseason. So I think B+ is just about fair for me for the Baltimore Ravens. All right, moving forward, you've got the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills kind of stayed steady in everything. So I'm going to give the Bills more of a B- only because they're still steady. You still have Brian Dable. You still have Sean McDermott as well. But my thing is with the Buffalo Bills is the defense needed to get a little better, but the run game has to be efficient. So I feel like the Buffalo Bills are going to do all that they can in their run game to really hope that this next year the expectations are still going to be high, but it's going to be a lot. And of course, jumping in here with me is Hammer. Hold on just 1 second, just getting through all this stuff here. But my one thing is I think Buffalo, they're still going to be a competitive team in that AFC East, but it's not going to be as easy as all of us presume to be. But I think Buffalo, B- for me. They still stay steady. They're still a competitive team, but that's what I think I've ranked their offseason. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals. I got to give the Bengals a C+. The high grade was, of course, the Jamar Chase thing. Because, of course, Joe Burrow here's what's funny. Jamar Chase caught 20 of Joe Burrow's 60 touchdowns in 2019. 20 of them. It's a good thing that they're reunited, but you still got to have a healthy offensive line for Joe Burrow, for God's sakes. What did we not learn anything from, I don't know, Carson Wentz, maybe even Deshaun Watson on torn ACLs, now Joe Burrow? This offensive line has got to get better. They addressed at least very little of it, but I still felt like they could have gotten a Penei Sewell. They could have gotten this and that. But Cincinnati, to me, I think deserves a C+ to me. Jamar Chase is a really good pick, but at the same time, it's not something they really needed because they still have T. Higgins. They still have Auden Tate and Tyler Boyd. So I think C+ is fair for me. All right, the Cleveland Browns. Now, this may surprise you all, but I give the Cleveland Browns an A. They addressed the offseason with Jadeveon Clowney and a bunch of really good players. And they came in this draft where they picked up one of the top corners. They also ended up picking up JOK, which, by the way, here was the takeaway of why he did not get drafted in that first round. He had a heart condition, and that scared a lot of teams picking him. But Cleveland was very confident in having JOK in the linebacking position, knowing that you've got a stacked defense. Secondary was absolutely the problem for the Cleveland Browns. This is no excuses anymore for the Cleveland Browns. This is probably the most stacked Browns team we've seen ever. So all the pressure and all the hype to Baker Mayfield is he has to execute. He's got to make the plays. This is no time for screwing around. You got to build upon what last season gave you. So I think the Browns, they're in the hot seats of maybe potentially being a team that could push for the AFC Championship game. But let's just see what the rest of the season pans out. And A is just about right for me for the Cleveland Browns. Okay, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos get a B-. The thing about what Denver needed is they went and got the top corner in the draft with Patrick Surtain. Him and Kyle Fuller. They still have Bradley Chubb up on the front line. They also did at least get a couple of good free agents as well. Now, the run game, they've got Melvin Gordon, and that's about it. Phillip Lindsay is out the door. You're going to get a healthy Cortland Sutton back. And Jerry Jeudy, I think, is going to have a better year too. But you can clearly see this. Right now, there's rumor reports about this Aaron Rodgers thing to Denver, and I don't know how serious this is. But it's telling you that the Broncos don't trust Drew Lock. They do not trust him with a passion. He's way too casual. A guy that I think works more on his choreography of his dances than he does of actually winning games for the Broncos moving forward. So this is why that I give them a B-. They got one of the best corners. They addressed at least a couple of things that they needed, but eventually quarterback is going to be the thing they need to fix up. The Houston Texans, come on. Can we just give them a C and move on? I don't think they've really addressed so much. I mean, the offseason they get offensive linemen, but are they really capable of protecting Deshaun Watson? And now you have the Deshaun Watson thing. So I'm just going to move past this and just say that the Texans just get a C. This is not enough for me to really say this, for me to really kind of break them down. But the Indianapolis Colts, I think the Colts deserve a B+. A team in the AFC South that they've acquired Carson Wentz in a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. They did lose some pieces, but they made up for it. The offensive line is still strong. They're going to protect Carson Wentz all that they can. The other thing, they went and drafted Kwity Paye. And Kwity Paye, I think, is going to be a really good linebacking edge rusher. However that this defense is really going to utilize him. But I think Chris Ballard, he's obviously has a plan. He always has. But I think the difference of this is this Colts team is serious in the South. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think the Colts deserve a B+ in my opinion. Chris Ballard never ceases to fail. And I think, to me, he's very successful. And at the same time, I think the Colts are right there in the driver's seat for the South. So the Jags. I'm going to give the Jags a B. My thing is, of course, they had to land the top talent in Trevor Lawrence. And now you've got Urban Meyer, who, by the way, Urban Meyer loves to build from scratch. He loves to build from scratch. This is what he's done in Florida. This is what he's done in Ohio State. The recruitment process is all Urban Meyer. And all these picks that they got was exactly the ticket. Now, the double run game with Travis Etienne and James Robinson, I think that's going to be fun to watch. I think the run game is solid. If you didn't see, they did get themselves a left tackle that I think is going to be very promising. They also got themselves a real good corner. So it seems to me the way Urban Meyer is going to work this is offense is going to produce, and then the defense is going to get reshaped, but it is going to get better over time. So I give the Jacksonville Jaguars a B. Next, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs get an A. This was not just about what they addressed in the draft. It's what they addressed in the offseason. They get Orlando Brown from the Baltimore Ravens. They give up a bunch of picks just to get him. They get Kyle Long out of retirement. They go and get they get their offensive line stacked for Patrick Mahomes, which, of course, they got bum rushed by Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl, and it embarrassed them. And that's where I feel like Kansas City is trying to pick up where they left off of from last year. So the Chiefs get an A for me. It's no doubt. They still have really good offensive weapons, and they also utilize a lot of their draft picks and a lot of their depth chart guys. All right, the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to give this team, I think I'm going to give this team at least a friendly C+. Maybe possibly a B-. Everybody looked at the first round pick as a reach with Alex Leatherwood, as I called him Leatherhead. But who knows? He might have some positive upsides with the offensive line. There are some things we might expect for Alex Leatherwood. But here's what I did like. This is what gives me a positive upside is Trayvon Moehrig. I had him as a prediction of it, and I think it was smart enough that the Raiders finally got Trayvon Moehrig. They needed some help in that secondary. Gus Bradley is really going to help this defense reshape well. This was a beautiful pick for them. Now let's see exactly what the Raiders may do through this season. Now, they did get Yannick Ngakoue in the offseason as a good pass rusher next to Carl Nassib, Max Crosby, and Cleveland Farrell. But this is a defense that has got to be shut down. They cannot give up more than 20 points a game. This is a team that really has to get serious, and especially in an AFC West that loves to throw, they love to score. So let's see what the Raiders do next season. All right, the LA Chargers. I'm going to give them an A. Off-season, Corey Linsley, Matt Filer, Adeo Bushi, and they re-sign Michael Davis and a bunch of players. And they go and get Rashawn Slater. There should not be one touch on Justin Herbert this year. This offensive line for the first time in 30 years looks stacked. This is probably by far the best. And Phillip Rivers is pissed off because how could he have not gotten that when he was their starting quarterback? But of course, they also did they got some really good steals in the draft. Asante Samuel Jr. in the corner, that addressed the corner position well. I think he is a shutdown type of corner. He's a guy that's ready to play in day one. And with Derwin James there, this better keep him healthy. This better keep Derwin James healthy. It's a cross your fingers type of moment for the Chargers. But man, did they nail the draft. They got a lot of steals. They got a lot of really good pickups in the offseason. Brandon Staley, I think, is going to have a lot of fun with this team. So I'm giving the Chargers an A altogether through the offseason and the draft. They really nailed this. The Miami Dolphins, I'm giving the Dolphins a B-. My thing with Miami, their defense is still solid. Now, the good upside is they do have Jalen Waddle. My question is how the run game is going to be for them. I'd like to see exactly a lot of positive upsides from there, But they did, in fact, help at least a little more on the offensive line, which is a good thing because Tua needs a lot of the protection, and you're getting more offensive producers as far as playmakers go for the wide receivers with Jalen Waddle and with Devontae Parker. So I'd like to see what happens with Brian Flores moving forward. This defense is still going to be solid, but I think B- is fair. I think it's one that the defense still stays solid, but at least we may see some good positive upsides for the Miami Dolphins. All right, the New England Patriots. The Patriots get a B. Mac Jones, Bill Belichick seems to be two smart-minded people in the offices. They got an awful lot of really good players in the offseason. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Jalen Mills, Matt Judon, Kyle Van Noy is back. This team just seemed like they got embarrassed by Tom Brady the second he won the Super Bowl. So now Belichick is trying to get New England back on the map again. And they're going to start with Cam. They're going to start with him and see what he does. But I believe Mac Jones is going to learn an awful lot with what Belichick offers on the table. I thought this was the smart pick. I think that this was the one thing that the New England Patriots needed to do. So a B was perfectly fine with me. The defense is still solid. The offensive line still continues to be top-notch. So let's see exactly what New England does if they rebound this year. The New York Jets. I'm giving them a B-. Here's the thing I like about the Jets. They not only just got Zach Wilson, but they ended up trading up to going and getting Elijah Vera Tucker, one of the best steals of the draft in offensive line. That's the one thing the Jets addressed, and they couldn't address the second they got, they had Sam Darnold in the building. But now you have Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker. They're with Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson's a guy that runs. He's a guy that apparently seems to be exciting when he's throwing in air, whatever it may be. But here's the only reason why they're B- is because look at what you're facing at in the AFC East. You're facing defenses everywhere. New England, Miami, Buffalo, with a first-year head coach in Robert Saleh and a first year for Zach Wilson. That seems like that's a lot on your hands. Zach Wilson, I feel like, is going to be overwhelmed with all this defense. Could you imagine Justin Fields being in this position? Good Lord. With a rebuilding offensive line, it's going to take some time, but hopefully there's some positive upside. So I think the Jets get a B- here for me. That's what I look at moving forward. The Pittsburgh Steelers, it's a B- for me. A little bit of a C+. They get Najee Harris. They fix their run game. But let me ask you a question, guys. Who in the hell is going to be the starting tackles or the guards to block up, even the center, to allow a run game for Najee Harris, let alone a 38-year-old Big Ben who still has to carry up this team? I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling with Tampa or with Pittsburgh. I really don't. My thing is they didn't get themselves a quarterback. But you're hoping that Pittsburgh at some point is going to figure this thing out. This is why I think I'm going to change it. I think it's going to be C+. I just don't know what this offensive line is really going to show for. And I'm almost afraid that Big Ben might suffer at least another injury. And then who in the hell are they going to get for quarterback now? That's the one thing I feel like they whiffed up on. All right. And finally, the Tennessee Titans. Titans get a B- or C+. My thing is with the Titans, they addressed the corner position. They needed to. Secondary was a big thing for them, but also the pass rush. The pass rush was another thing because they had no pass rushers at all from last year. They lost it with Jarrell Casey. They lost it with, even with Jadeveon Clowney. So Tennessee still feels to me like they are a team that still stays competitive in the AFC South, but it's going to be a little challenging knowing they lost Jonnu Smith. And now you still have A.J. Brown. You still have Derrick Henry. There's no doubt about that. And Ryan Tannehill has been the best version we've seen him at quarterback. But something tells me it's going to be at least a little bit of a rocky start with the Tennessee Titans. But this South Division is all Colts. It's all Tennessee. Jacksonville's going to get there. And what more do I need to say about the Houston Texans? So I feel like C+ for Tennessee, just top notch it. That's just what I feel like right now that the Tennessee Titans are kind of sitting themselves up on. But there still are a lot of things that they need to address. But let's see what the season brings. So that, of course, were all of my draft grades from here. So I think this was interesting. And, of course, I know now I've got one more person that I'm sure loves to hop on with me, and I'm sure he's got a lot to say about all of this via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard. My good friend Jeff Hammond, a.k.a. Hammer of Hammer's House, in here with me on the Snake Sports Talk Show. You know, we were so excited for this draft, and ultimately there was so much that you just couldn't love every single pick. Like, every one of them nailed it. But it's going to be interesting with at least a couple of teams. And we did speak about the Raiders earlier with the Alex Leatherwood pick and then rebounding it with Trayvon Moehrig. It's just like, I'm not sure what the direction is for the Raiders yet, but are you hoping that the Raiders are at least going to get themselves at least above 500?
I'm hoping so. The Leatherwood pick, yeah, everybody was scratching their heads, every Raider fan, and then mother was screaming, what the fuck just happened? What are we doing? Moehrig, I know they traded up for him, and obviously there were other teams that were there before 48 that were looking to get him. I found it very funny. The one guy that I wanted before everybody was so high on Moehrig, or even like before the draft was being talked about, I was constantly ranting, raving about Javon Holland, and Holland got drafted before Moehrig did. I was like, what are we doing now? What? Like, is he going to be better than him now? But we got lucky with that pick. We got lucky with being able to trade up the way we did with Leatherwood. I'm iffy right now. I'm nervous, but I do also see with what they did with the remaining picks in that draft, this had to have been Gus Bradley's doing, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. They needed to build up that defense in every way, shape, and form with the needs that they had. At the same time, you got guys like Kuntz and Diablo. I'm loving the name right now. Diablo in the desert. Like, that's dope. Diablo is going to end up
living here in the desert. Does feel like Diablo at the very least. Or unless if you go to Death Valley or Valley of Fire or any of that, I mean, you're probably going to get exactly what we're talking about from here. But yeah, it brings a bell. It's a good ring to it.
He's going to make for a great will linebacker, which is something we're definitely going to need. So I'm very excited to have him. Kuntz, the second he got drafted, they were already saying he was the next best player to come out of Buffalo, being compared to another edge rusher out of Buffalo, Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. I'm excited to see him put that work in. But again, I do believe Gus Bradley had a lot of input on these picks to help this defense going into the season. We are not trying to have another year where our defense is giving up 30-plus points a game. That was just absolutely abysmal. For us to start off the way we did and then finish 8-8 was just embarrassing.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you on that. I mean, that was just one of the things that the second, like I mentioned before to Darian, is because John Gruden has had just bad luck when it came to being 6-3 and then missing the playoffs amongst 140 teams that have gone 6-3 and made the playoffs. And it just feels like, is this ever going to be something that's going to change or eventually going to get better? My only thing is, and I'm sure you had a lot to say about with the grade and everything else, but my thing is that grade is more of a cross your fingers moment for Raider fans, hoping that some sort of positive upside is going to come out of this for next year. Because think about it, no Rodney Hudson and this offensive line, no Gabe Jackson. It's going to be interesting.
Trent Brown.
Yeah, no Trent Brown. So how do we even see what this offensive line is going to be capable of, and can they protect Derek Carr for him to even throw to his playmakers, and hopefully seeing a good upside from Henry Ruggs for year 2?
So I put it in the chat when I opened this up and saw that you had Darian on. Mayock actually just said it recently, and it was like, are you eavesdropping on me? Can you read my mind? Like, do you need an assistant? What's good? Like, these were the things I said about Ruggs. Ruggs needs to get his weight up. Ruggs needs to be able to develop as a better route runner, and he needs to learn the concept of ball security. And now all of a sudden Mayock is coming and saying the same damn thing. I'm like, can I be the GM now? It's insane. Like, I heard your grade, and I'm just like, I gave them a B- with what they did. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic. I'm looking forward to this. The offensive line, I do believe, is going to be okay. From left to right, we got Colton Miller, Richie Incognito, the kid that they just signed from Houston. I think the last name is Martin. Dude only gave up, I think, 1 sack the entire season last year. And then to the right side, you're either going to see a flip-flop between Good and Leatherwood. One is playing either guard or right tackle. So I'm optimistic, but I'm also looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely.
We have the receiver. We have receivers now. I still don't believe that we have a legitimate number one. No disrespect to Willie Snead. No disrespect to John Brown. But those aren't number one receivers to me when it comes to what an NFL number one receiver is right now.
Yeah, and especially with what the numbers that Nelson Aguilar put up a year ago. And that's one that I'm sure a lot of Raider fans are just like, why in the hell did we not give him an extension?
What was the deal he got again?
Oh my God, I thought it was like a small deal in New England, like 2 years or so.
Why do I feel it's like around the ballpark that I was saying, like, when I knew he was going to be a free agent, I was like, throw him like 2 years, 24. And I think they roughly offered him something around those lines. And I'm like, why couldn't we do that?
Right. And, like, that's obviously from the powers and the moves from the general manager. And that's one that I think, of course, is head scratchers for a lot of Raider fans and NFL fans in general. But, who knows? Who knows exactly who could come out as one of the top receivers for this Raiders group. But you're hoping that you're going to see at least some productive levels. The run game is still going to stay consistent, but it's ultimately if this offensive line is really legitimate enough, if they're going to protect Carr, give run help, and at the same time, if this defense is going to be shut down, especially in the air, because think about it, you got Patrick Mahomes, you got Justin Herbert, and every single one of them have playmakers all the way around them. I can't count Drew Lock in this position because Lock is just too casual. It clearly shows that if they're showing interest for Aaron Rodgers, they have no time for Lock. They just have no time for him. So it's like, who knows what the Broncos are going to do, but you have playmakers everywhere. And that's where I feel like the Raiders have to show up on defense the most.
The major problem that I'm starting to see, like this is becoming a yearly thing now, is where they're constantly in the search for a number one receiver on offense. And that's not a good look. You want to have somebody that's going to be there with longevity, at least 2 to 3 years, not someone you're going to swap out every single year. Like, that's annoying.
Yeah, I was there. I was in that position when it came to the Chargers before they got Mike Williams, because Keenan Allen just kept getting hurt, knowing he's going to be a number one wide receiver, but he needs help. He can't do everything by himself. So the second Mike Williams comes into the picture, there's more health and longevity. So it feels like it was kind of a steal in the ballpark, no matter how anybody would have looked at it. But at least the offense, the core is solid.
Right. And to touch on what you said about the Titans before, they got an edge rusher in the draft that's actually already in trouble. Dude has assault charges on him, and apparently the Titans did not know about this. So, yeah, we might already be looking at a suspension before he even touches the field for the first time in the NFL.
Jeez. And not to mention, too, they took a gamble at Caleb Farley as well with the back injury and everything else. So it's, I don't know. And not to mention, too, I mean, the Titans had no pass rush from last year. Not one guy really stepped up in pass rush after they lost Jarrell Casey and they lose Cameron Wake and a lot of these guys. Who knows what Tennessee is going to really look at, for next season? Because, of course, the Colts are going to be the top-notch team in the South. The Jags are not. They're in the building process because I understand what Urban Meyer's trying to do. He's working on offense to score points first, and who knows what the defense, what they're going to build upon, but it's not going to be great, but it's going to get there. And then what really do we really have to say about the Texans? We really don't even have to say much. So it just seems like Titans may have a rocky start, but we'll see exactly what Mike Vrabel has, in his back pockets, if he's got a plan or something like that in the works.
Gotta wait and see, man.
Oh, yeah. But, it just felt like this draft was probably one of the most extravagant drafts we'll have now for a while, because the last few years in these drafts have been exceptional. We've watched Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert ball out. We're going to potentially see Trevor Lawrence, possibly Trey Lance. I mean, I think Trey Lance is going to come in at least the last quarter of the season, because unless something happens to Jimmy Garoppolo, that's the only thing that is going to be. Yeah, which is questionable, and it's a timetable. And then Justin Fields in Chicago. I feel like that Justin Fields works for me in Chicago. I feel like it's going to be something that finally Bears fans can be excited about, and hopefully they may work this offensive line, because they've always been known for defense. So now let's work on the offense at least a little bit more. I feel like that's what Chicago is moving for.
I'm very happy for Gooley, because I know he was. I watched the video and how excited he was when they got Fields. I think Fields will work his ass off throughout training camp. He will show some flashes in the preseason, and the second Dalton starts shitting in the bed like the first 3-4 games of the season, it's going to be Fields' time to shine.
Yeah. This is what I've also been talking about as well, because it's usually how it works with all these quarterbacks and stuff like that. So I truly think that that's exactly what's going to happen with Justin Fields moving forward, because my thing is Mac Jones, I think, is in a safe place with New England, with knowing that you have a smart mindset. But something just tells me that Zach Wilson is just going to get overwhelmed with those defenses in the AFC East. And knowing you got Miami and New England and Buffalo, you're going to have so much of your hands full. You're a first-year quarterback with a first-year coach. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how the Jets are really going to appoint this, but I love the Elijah Vera Tucker pick. That's the one thing I love that they got aggressive at, because now Mekhi Becton has a supporter next to him. And that was got to work on it.
That was a great draft pick for them getting Vera Tucker. He was another one of those linemen that I really wanted in Vegas. But as long as you and I have known each other, what's the one thing I've always said when it comes to the New York Jets and quarterbacks?
Oh, dear Lord, yes.
So I'm nervous. I'm very nervous for Wilson. Again, it's a first-year head coach. I'm very nervous for him right now, because this is not – to be drafted where you're drafted, great. But yes, being a quarterback, let alone a rookie quarterback for the New York Jets, is not necessarily a destination that you want.
And in a division where you got all the pressure right there up on your shoulders, where you got your hands full with those defenses, how are you really going to overcome that? You're facing them 6 times all together. So it's like, yeah, that I think is going to be really interesting to watch as the season moves forward. You may luck yourself out and might actually get against, rebuilding teams like Houston or maybe Detroit, but the second you face the field against top-notch defenses, that's a totally different ballgame.
But we will all find that out together next week as the NFL, I think ESPN2 and the NFL Network will be rolling out all 32 teams 2021-2022 NFL schedule. I cannot wait. I saw who the Raiders' opponents were. I'm going to try, if I can, God willing, to get to a couple of games this year, including Pittsburgh. Would love to go to at least one in Vegas if I have the opportunity this coming season. They're playing the Giants as well, so there'll be a few games this coming season I will go to. Fuck COVID, because I could have went to at least 6 or 7 last season on the East Coast and then maybe even one in Vegas. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the schedule is put out next week.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how the schedule shapes up, because that's what's going to be the most important thing. And now really ranking exactly, the toughest, if not the easiest schedules in all the NFL. And so we'll see exactly how each team shapes up from there. But, obviously, we always have baseball moments. We always do. And it's been interesting with how the season's really kind of kicked off, but there's been some real good upsides with at least a couple of teams, and some that are like, might start getting concerned about them right now.
Oh shit now.
Oh, I was like, he was really in deep thought for a long time.
No, my New York Mets right now look like absolute dog shit right now. The one consistent thing that I've watched my entire life is them not being able to convert on runners in scoring position. They can't hit the side of a barn right now. Lindor. Yo, New York fans are already booing you, bro. And it comes with the territory of playing in New York, but you are batting 163. Bro, what is going on? Dom Smith almost got into it the other night, which I wish. Me, playing football and baseball growing up, I was one of the most aggressive son of a bitches on the field. And even in warm-ups, I'm getting my mind right. People look at me like, yo, you good? You good? I'm good. I'm ready to go. In football, I used to love getting on fights on the field. I didn't care. But that whole thing with Alvarado, I think it was. Yeah, I would have got right in his face, and I would have swung for the fences. Maybe that would have lit a fire up the rest of my teammates' asses. But Rojas is not the solution. And I've said this to a couple of people over the last couple of weeks. He was made manager. He was hired as a manager because there are players currently on that roster that came up through the farm system with Rojas and absolutely loved him and have great respect for him. I think Nino Brown in New Jack City put it best. Friends is friends. Business is business. He's not a major league manager. He's not a major league manager by any stretch of the imagination, and I think it's a matter of time before he goes. The hitting coach, Chili Davis, I don't know what hitting instructions you're giving them, but these guys are not coming through. You have guys like Pete Alonso that used to be pretty – I think his plate discipline was okay. It's not the best in the world, but now every time he's up at bat, you have him swinging for the fences.
Well, and it certainly
be patient and let the ball come to you and make something happen.
Yeah, it certainly didn't look like that the second that Chili Davis was up in Oakland. I can guarantee you this much when it came to hitting. but who knows?
Yeah, I'm not understanding. Those are the two problems. But everybody else, like everybody on sports talk radio in New York, anyways, ESPN radio out here, these guys are like, oh, it's the players. Like the coaches can't do everything. I get that. I totally get that. And I feel maybe, okay, we just finished the first month of the season. Maybe this will turn around. Maybe the bats will start to get hot. I don't know right now, man. I'm getting more and more nervous. I've had conversations with people about free agency, and they're like, what's going on? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? For those that don't know, and I'm gonna make this known to people now. Before Cohen was approved to be the new owner of the New York Mets, you had owners that pretty much were like, you better not break the luxury tax this your first year. And he pretty much made a promise to those owners that he would not. So here we are. This is why we don't have guys like Bauer. This is why we don't have guys like Springer and everybody else that everybody was wishing and hoping for because of that one little promise. And he did say in the very first press conference that he had that his plan is a 3 to 5 year plan. So you got people that are already ready to jump off the George Washington Bridge because they're not they're not in first place and they're not a team that has like 5-6 losses on the season. Like, I get it. It's frustrating. I'm a diehard Met fan. Watching some of these games, even the game the other night that they got away with that home run that was called back. You guys got to be patient, and in the words of Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, relax.
That's my other thing. And since we're kind of at this point right now, what if the New York Mets just all of a sudden just ended up catching fire by the second half of the season came around the corner?
Then all of a sudden, are we family like PG right now, or can I get away with like dropping an F-bomb?
Yeah, you'll probably get away with it because you've already started that anyway.
All right, so if we do in fact start getting hot, I'll tell you right now, because I'm looking at all these group pages from these Met fans and stuff, and then the Met fans walking the streets of New York and New York City right now. The fair weather bandwagon fuck around gang, they're all of a sudden going to be up in arms. I knew it was going to happen. Blah, 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 blah. No. Just like the Raider fans doing that same crap.
Yeah.
Either when it comes to those two teams, you guys know I'm a Raider fan, I'm a Met fan. Win, lose, or tie, I'm a fan of both of those teams until I die. So I still believe things are going to work out for them. Like I said, it's only the first month of the season. At least not playing a 60-game season because we would already be out of it. There wouldn't even be a question. We'd be out of it already. And granted, we missed, 4 games to start the season because of the Nats catching COVID and everything. But I think this will probably be the month between – I give it another week or two, and I think we're going to start to see them turn it around. The pitching has looked phenomenal. We just can't hit, and that sucks right now. And Lindor, you really need to get it together. You're here for the next 10 years. We do not want or at least I don't want to hear Met fans booing you throughout the next 9-10 years that you're here.
Yeah, don't need at least another disappointment or anything like that that's coming around with the Mets moving forward and stuff like that. So that'll be very interesting. And so we'll see exactly what happens with the Mets moving forward, but hopefully this will be some really good positive upside for them. So it's always good talking with you, Hammer, always, and stuff like that. Love having your insights and everything else. And so, but this will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the Raiders really do.
I missed you.
I know, man. I know. Finally being back up on here again. It's just been long amount of days, not to mention allergy season just knocked me and everything else. So I've been trying to get better and all that other stuff, but I'm finally 110% better, working at it. And still producing at least, best content as I possibly can.
Before I go, Chris Weidman, one of my guys from Baldwin, a situation last weekend against Uriah Hall. It sucked, man. And
I could not believe
felt
that.
incredibly bad with the way things. I felt incredibly bad with how things turned out, but I know you got your surgery done. I know you're gonna get there. I know right now UFC have put that medical suspension for the next 6 months, so we'll probably see you in the next probably year or so. But I wish you the best, man, and I wish you a speedy recovery. Aljo, Funk Master Aljamain Sterling, the current UFC bantamweight champion. You just recently had surgery a couple of weeks ago as well. We spoke, but I'm putting it out there now. I hope you feel better. I hope you recover quickly. We can't wait to see you defend the title for the first time. And hopefully we get the opportunity to link up on the West Coast in August. If God willing, we get this together and we could all have a great, fun spotlight weekend and turn up. And one of my boys that I used to coach football with, Anthony Bolden, bro, I love you to death. And we're with you and we're going to get through this together, man. You got this. Stay strong, brother. And we're pulling for you 1,000%. Love you, bro.
Absolutely, you guys. And just like you hear it from here, you hear it from the one and only House right there. Hammer's House, of course, here on the Spotlight Sports Network. You can catch all of his content from Raiders and Mets content. And yeah, I mean, it was a scary injury, and that was one that hopefully for speedy recovery and much, much more. And, I couldn't even believe the look of it myself. It just reminded me so much of what happened when Anderson Silva had suffered that same similar injury. And it's like, just it repeats itself.
And it was like against Weidman.
Yeah.
Against Weidman nearly 8 years ago. Like, it's just so weird.
I don't know what was in the air, but you never wish that upon anybody at all. And that's one that's just scary. But yeah, absolutely, man. I cannot wait for you to get up out here up in Vegas, man. And we'll definitely link up. And by the way, I mean, the Raiders Tavern is officially open. So it's finally opened up. It's finally running for business. And so, yep. So it'll be some fun stuff. But yeah, absolutely, man. We can't wait to have you up out here up in Vegas, man. Good talking with you. Have a good night. And we'll see exactly what next season is going to bring us here for the Raiders and for the rest of the NFL.
Can't wait. Stay safe, brother, and I'll definitely talk to you soon. It's always a pleasure chatting it up with you. It's been way too long. We'll definitely be talking soon.
Absolutely, man. Take care of yourself. Have a good night.
Later, brother.
Later. So, of course, the one and only Jeff Hammer at Hammer's House. Man, it's always so good talking with everybody. But, man, we had a jam-packed show, guys, and it's only going to get better from here as we got more and more tomorrow. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm jam-packed already. Gosh, it's already like this long right now tonight, but I really do appreciate everybody who stayed on and have really got their thoughts with as far as the draft and everything else has gone. So I really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. And we will see you guys tomorrow night. We're going to have at least more of the jam packs. And of course, I will also have my NFC offseason and draft grades as well. So you guys do not want to end up missing that. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And we will see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good night.